Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Greenfield Public School Committee meeting, Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. It's our first meeting of the year, 6 p.m. We're at the Johns On Community Center at 35 Pleasant Street. As a reminder, everyone is required to wear a mask and maintain social distancing while we're in our meeting. Let's see, roll call, I guess. Because we have a new year, we don't have any declared officers or identified officers at this time. So as the ranking member, I'll be running the meeting until that activity takes place. And as such, I guess I'll just do roll call as well. Yes, ma'am, thank you. Secretary, no, I can't say that either. Member Johnson Musad.
Here.
Myself, I am here. Member Proietti?
Here.
Member Wall?
Here.
Member Martini?
Here.
Member Deneve, or if I'm wrong and it's Denev, please clarify for me.
It's Deneve.
Excellent. Thank you. Got it. All right, we are missing the mayor at this time. I'm told that she is on her way, so we're going to we're going to hold on our election of officers until her arrival so that we have an appropriate team. And in the meantime, I'm wondering, Marlo, could you come give us an update from the DPW until she arrives at the very least? Or?
Unless you want to wait 5 seconds.
Here she is. You're off the hook for now.
It's okay.
Thank you.
What do you think you are, the mayor?
Kind of day.
Glad to see you, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay, now we have all of the members of the school committee and clearly have a quorum. Superintendent, take it away.
I was going to let the mayor take her coat off, but I don't have to. Okay, so as the first order of business this evening, I will entertain a motion for chair. Do we have any nominations? Is that Member Ekstrom?
I'd like to nominate Member Proietti to be chair. And just a little bit on her behalf.
Let's get a second.
Oh, that's right, sorry.
Okay. Do we have a second for the nomination? Okay. Do we have any other nominations for chair? Member Deneve?
I'd like to nominate Glenn Johnson Musad.
Okay. Do we have a second for Glenn's nomination?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion regarding Member Proietti's nomination? Member Ekstrom?
I actually want to wholeheartedly recommend Member Proietti. I've had a front row seat to everything that is needing to be done to be the chair. It is a full-time job. It requires quite a bit of diplomacy and thoughtfulness and teamwork, really, with those who are around you. And I've been fortunate enough to work with the chair and have developed a working relationship. And I truly believe that she, at this point, is the best decision for chair.
Any other discussion for Member Proietti's nomination? Hearing none. Any discussion regarding Member Johnson Musad's nomination?
I'll say, I feel like Glenn is a wonderful facilitator. I've been in many meetings with him, and he knows how to create a smooth and results-oriented environment. And I think that as chair, he would be able to support forward motion while also creating a respectful atmosphere. And I think he would make a wonderful chair.
Okay. Any other discussion regarding Member Johnson Musad's nomination? Member Johnson Musad?
I'd like to say a few words. Just thank you very much for that nomination.
I think that I could run a very open, respectful, and accessible school committee. We just recently ran a campaign for school committee where we were talking to a lot of voters about that, about wanting equity for students of color and other targeted groups, and wanting to support our educators. And the response to our campaign was really enormous. We won every precinct by a pretty wide margin. I think the citizens of Greenfield really were sending a message about wanting change on the school committee, and I think I can bring that. So that's why I wanted to thank you for the nomination and speak a little bit to why I wanted to accept the nomination.
Okay. Any other discussion about Member Johnson Musad's nomination?
I actually, in the attempt of transparency, Member Johnson Musad, that you've always wanted to see the school committee demonstrate, I'm unable to support you for this role, and I want to be clear about why that is. I've seen the role that you've taken be used as a way to bully other committee members. I don't think that the transparency that you are speaking of is something that you actually want, because I know that there are things that you have done and claim to want to have done, and then gone sort of into the weeds to disagree with what you had publicly said. And I think that in your zeal to appear to be on the right side of things, to your constituency or what you perceive as your constituency overrides what you know to be legally necessary or what has been agreed to in contracts. And I've struggled with this because I've been in negotiations with you for the unions, and you're really good at it. You're really good at it. And I wish that I saw that person that I see in those meetings in our public meetings. And my concern is that we speak as a group. The committee makes decisions together. There's no one person who is better than anyone else. There's no one person, or whose voice is stronger, I should say. There is no, if the policy that we changed as a committee related to public comment has been attributed to you, and I have yet to see you put in print or to hear you say out loud, we are a committee and we work together. I've gotten several emails saying that the public comment policy was changed because of you. This isn't Glenn's committee, this is a full group school committee, and I struggle with that. I want you to be the absolute best person that you can be, and I want you to be the best school committee member, and I want all of those things, and I absolutely see that in you. But there are things that really concern me, and so I wanted you to know that, and I'm sure that people will send me all kinds of emails, but I wanted to be honest and transparent, as you've been asking for, and so that is my comment.
Okay. Are we ready to take vote? Okay. Oh.
Did you have something you wanted to read or say?
No?
Oh,
I already made my
You
comment.
you did, okay.
Okay.
I guess I would like to say something.
That's fine if there's additional comment.
Thank you. I really don't like the reorganization meeting at all. It makes me very uncomfortable. And the first thing I want to say is I think the reason it makes me uncomfortable is because the vast majority of the votes that we take as a school committee throughout our course of our work in a calendar year are unanimous votes in favor of the thing that we have put forward. We do work well together. The other thing I want to say, it's really, really important to me in every election, even an internal one like this, that the people who are voting are given a choice. So I'm very grateful that there is a choice for the school committee members to make right now. I think that choices are, in an election and in a democracy, are critical. And I think the only other thing I would say is I want to be chair again for a third year, because I don't feel like coming in January 2020 as chair, that I've yet gotten a taste of what it's really like. And our permanent superintendent began just in August. And just since August, I've learned so many things about how we can do better, and I'd like to take that forward. Thank you.
Any other comment? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of Member Proietti as chair, I will do a roll call. Okay, so Member Johnson Musad. No. Okay.
No?
Member Ekstrom.
Yes.
Member Proietti.
Yes.
Member Wall.
Yes.
Oh, I apologize, Mayor. I skipped over you on the list. Mayor Wiedengartner.
Actually, I think E comes after A.
Oh, okay. Your vote for Member Proietti as chair?
Yes.
Member Martini?
No.
And Member Deneve?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and then votes for Member Johnson Musad as chair. Member Johnson Musad?
Yes.
Okay. Member Ekstrom?
No.
Member Proietti?
No.
Member Wall?
No.
Mayor Wiedengartner?
No.
Member Martini?
Yes.
And Member Deneve?
Yes.
Okay. So Member Proietti is 4 yeses and 3 nos, and Member Johnson Musad is 3 yeses and 4 nos. So Member Proietti has the majority for the position of chair.
Congratulations, Chair Prietti.
Thank you. Thank you all for just approaching it in an objective way, and Glenn, your willingness to serve doesn't go unnoticed, so thank you. Okay, we have to do the rest of the officers. And in case folks did not have it already in front of them, we do have the policy for how the organizational meeting works in your packet. It's also in the packet that's up on the web. At this point, I would like to call for nominations for the position of vice chairperson. Member Ekstrom.
I would like to nominate Member Wall for vice chair.
And do I have a second of that nomination? I'll second that nomination. And any other nominations for vice chair?
I would like to put into nomination Glenn Johnson Musad.
And a second for that.
Second.
Okay. So we have any other nominations for vice chair? It'll be a crowded field, but please. Okay, and we should have some discussion. So we've got Member Johnson Musad and Member Wall. How about discussion about Member Johnson Musad as vice chair?
I would like to offer a comment.
Go ahead, please, Catherine. Member Martini, I'm sorry.
I apologize. It took me a few minutes to formulate my thoughts in response to what we've heard a little bit earlier. I agree with what Member Ekstrom had said before about the need for diplomacy and thoughtfulness. And I think that is important in every role, of course, on the school committee. I have observed a lot of school committee meetings over the course of my experience, and I have always appreciated Glenn being the person to lower the temperature in the room when things get heated, and to be mindful of the rules of order. And I think that he would make an excellent vice chair. And I think that would be very satisfactory to many of the voters that I spoke to during election season this fall, knocking on many doors throughout Greenfield, and hearing time and again that the citizens of our town would like to see a more respectful tenor on our school committee.
Thank you for that. Further discussion about Member Johnson-Musad as vice chair?
I would like to make a comment, if I may.
Please.
I put Member Johnson-Musad's name into nomination because, like Chair Poetti, I believe we all should have a choice, and I recognize that we recently had an election. And so we have members of this committee who need to be able to make choices as they move along, but also be part of a regular committee. I have had the pleasure over the last 2 very difficult years of working on the school committee with both Member Johnson-Musad and Member Wall. So they both have done their work in what I consider to be a respectful and collegial way. We don't always agree, but as was pointed out earlier, we, which I think is a good thing, do come to consensus eventually. So it's important for me that everyone has the ability on this committee to have a choice. So that is my interest in putting this name forward.
Thank you, Mayor Weidergartner. Any further discussion? Please, go ahead, Member Johnson-Musad.
Thank you both for your kind words, and I would do my best to live up to your faith in me in this role. Thank you very much for the nomination.
How about further discussion on that? I'm sensing no. Discussion of the nomination for Member Wall as vice chair. Everyone says, I would like to start, actually. I have only gotten to know Member Wall since we both came on in January 2020 to the school committee. And we also had a memorable date together at Northampton High School. It was March of 2020, and it was a dinner event with a training for new school committee members, and no one who was there knew what to do. And I think, that just kind of us trying to move through that as gracefully and safely as possible told me a lot about who Member Wall was, because we didn't know how COVID was spread at that time. We drove down there together. Nobody wore masks. We ate a meal together. A week later, Mayor Narkowitz of Northampton, who had been at the session with us, tested positive for COVID. And so it was a very memorable thing. And I think that also for us, we had a chance to talk, like you do when you go in a car with someone, and you learn a little bit more about them. And I've since been able to really rely on Member Wall to be a sounding board for ideas, and without question, she is a seeker of compromise and an excellent listener. And she's very measured in her approach to all things, which I think we need probably more of in this world to temper some of the hotheads, right? And I'm just very grateful for Jean as a peer on the school committee, and I think that to have her as my vice chair would be a really, really important dynamic for a successful school committee. Yes, please, Member Ekstrom.
I actually sort of wanted to, not sort of, I want to agree with what Amy said, but I also, in my head, and this doesn't sound good, I don't think, but maybe it sounds good in my head. Jean is, she's like the sleeper committee member. She's in the corner, she's quiet, she's listening to everything that goes on, which we all know I can't do, so I admire that. But when she speaks, she sort of hits the nail on the head every time, and I appreciate that. And so that is why I believe that she would be a good vice chair.
Thank you. Further discussion of Member Wall as vice chair? Member Wall, please.
I would just like to say thank you to both of you for those very kind words. And for those of you who don't know me, I want you to know that since I've been on the school committee, I've served as the chair of the superintendent search committee. I've been on the budget committee. I've chaired the ad hoc school redistricting committee. I have worked on union negotiations, and I'm currently attending student council meetings at both the high school and the middle school so that I can directly hear from students and parents and the administration on what is happening in the schools. And I happen to be retired and have the time to take on more duties, so I would appreciate your vote for me for vice president. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Wall. Thank you, Member Wall. Any further discussion? Okay, so we've had discussion opportunities and statement opportunities for both Member Johnson-Musad and Member Wall. Let's move to a vote. I'm not hearing any disagreement, so we'll vote first, yay or nay, yes or no, for Member Johnson-Musad as vice chair. Member Johnson-Musad.
Yes.
Member Ekstrom.
No.
And I am a no. And Mayor Wiedegartner.
No.
And Member Wall.
No.
And Member Martini.
Yes.
And Member Deneve.
Yes.
Okay, and votes for Member Wall as vice chair. Member Johnson-Musad.
No.
Member Ekstrom.
Yes.
Chair Prayati, I'm a yes. Mayor Wiedegartner.
Yes.
Member Wall.
Yes.
Member Martini.
No.
And Member Deneve.
No.
Okay, thank you. So my tally is 4 votes for Member Wall, 3 votes for Member Johnson-Musad. So Member Wall, congratulations, you're our new vice chair. And I would say also, Member Johnson-Musad, your ability and willingness to serve does not go unnoticed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We now have to do a nomination for secretary. Who are any nominations for the role of secretary? Member or Vice Chair Wall?
I'd like to nominate Susan Ekstrom.
Do we have a second for that? I'll second it. And any other nominations for secretary?
I will nominate Glenn Johnson-Musad.
And is there a second for that?
I second.
And that was Member Deneve, right? Only because I'm not looking up. That's okay, so we have 2 nominations. Any other nominations for secretary? Okay, Let's talk about statements regarding Member Ekstrom as secretary.
Actually, if you don't mind, I think I will decline the nomination for secretary. Thank you. I appreciate the interest, but I'm not interested in serving in that role.
Okay, so we've got only one nomination on the table for Member Ekstrom. Are there other nominations at this time? Okay, hearing none. Do we still need to do a roll call vote? Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and just, actually statements. Would anyone like to make a statement about Member Ekstrom as secretary? Well, I would. I would just, I would just like to say that it is a role that I know is plays on Member Ekstrom's skills. She's organized. She reads the things that I don't want to read, and she keeps track of contracts and minutes. And she is our ranking member, so she's been on school committee longer than all of us. You signed up for a second tour of duty, I think. Yep. And I just would really be appreciative to have her on my team as in this role. Member Wall, do you have a statement?
Yes, I have served with her on the budget committee, and she is thorough and knows stuff I don't even know how people know. So I support her wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Member Wall. Any further discussion? So we'll do a roll call vote, a yay or nay, yes or no, for Member Ekstrom as secretary. Member Johnson-Musad.
Yay.
And Member Ekstrom.
Yes.
And Chair Prayati, I'm a yes. And Mayor Wiedegartner.
Yes.
And Member Wall.
Yes.
And Member Martini.
Yes.
And Member Deneve.
Yes.
You are unanimously the secretary. Thank you for serving. Thank you all for participating in this process. And let's move into the rest of the agenda. Get that part over with. Okay. Now we get to work, all of us. Now we get to work. Okay. He's been waiting so patiently. I told him we might get to him around 6:15. Marla, would you be so kind as to join us up here? This is our update from the DPW. Marla Warner, what do they call you? The superintendent? Clerk of the work? What do they call you? Director, okay. Thank you for joining us. You might have to hold it to, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, thanks for having me tonight. I think I've been back with the city for about 3 years, and I'm not sure I've attended a school committee meeting.
Oh.
But I will say that I believe Chair Peretti and I talked about this back in March of 2020 when we provided this building to deal with the COVID situation. But when we talked about doing this, well, here we are 2 years later.
Yep.
And it's good. The DPW and the school department work together on many things behind the scenes. The DPW provides many things for the school department. But I also, the main reason tonight I'm here is there's a couple of projects that it's important that I update the committee on, where we're going with them, when they're going to start, because 2 of them will have impacts on 2 of your schools. The first one I'd like to update you on is the Sanderson Street project. That's a big one for the middle school. The limits of the project go from Federal Street all the way to the mountain to Beacon Tennis Courts. And within that scope of work, there's going to be a 104-year-old water main replaced, a lot of sewer replacement and lining, some drainage work, reconstruction of the roadbed and repaving, and also replacement of some sidewalks in that scope of work. We went out to bid. The bids were open last week. We came in budget, woohoo. So the one important thing is, as we move forward in the next month or two, I had talked about, I believe, at Planning and Construction that Jean may be familiar with. We want to form a committee. There's a lot going on Sanderson Street. You have the hospital, you have medical offices, you have the Sanderson Street building with all the city employees in there, and of course, the middle school pickup area. So I want to form some sort of, keep it condensed, a person from each of those large entities that can report back to their areas. I think communications are going to be a really big thing for that project, for everyone. And in doing so, when we put the bid out, Alan Torag, our engineering superintendent, and I talked about it, and I asked him to put in the bid specs to please not work in the middle school area while school is in session. In other words, try and hold off till June. That was acceptable. We had 7 bids on the project, so we came within budget. So we're going to do our best to not be in front of the Sanderson Street building and the side of the middle school during construction. So my intent is to possibly start up on the other side of High Street. So I think that's going to be a really big project. There's going to be a lot of communication going forward. Construction's never easy. It's never perfect. You find all kinds of things under the ground from 100 years ago, but we strive to make sure that, you know, we put a good project forward and have good communication to make life as simple as we can for motorists and cyclists and walkers. So that's the big project. I would say maybe I can keep in touch with the committee, maybe come back in a month or two and see where we're at as we start to organize for that project. It appears they may be starting in April or May, but we have not had the pre-construction meeting yet. We'll be having that in probably 3 or 4 weeks, so I'll have more information. The other project that is, I think, will have less impact, but is going to be important to the high school area is a Complete Streets grant we received for additional sidewalks in the area of the high school. And what I mean by that is, if you know where the north end of Chapman Street is, the sidewalks come off Silver Street and they go into the abyss. There's no sidewalks until you get to Norwood Street. You got to walk in the street. You hit Norwood Street, you got to walk in the street or walk in the wet grass to get to Davis Street. That's the prime example. There's other areas, but we're going to be adding sidewalks under that grant, attaching the pieces of the puzzle, so to speak. So for walkers, it's going to be much safer. There's a bunch of those areas that are earmarked for that project. So that's kind of out of the way of the high school, but it's going to be in the area of the high school. But I don't see a large impact, but I thought I would put that project out to you all. So those are the 2 bigger projects. And just to hit a little bit, maybe a little high level on some of the other things we do for the new members. So snow and ice. Oh, great. We get to talk about snow and ice. So just an overview on the snow and ice. On the surface, it seems easy. You watch the weather. You know, is school going to be canceled? City Hall going to be canceled? How bad is it going to be driving? Well, on our end, there's a big workup. It starts 2 days before a storm, and we do a pre-planning in the DPW. I may start reaching out to the superintendent at that point, not because we know the forecast is dead on, but we got to prepare our equipment. We got to find out what equipment's down, what we have for staffing, depending on the size of the storm. So within 24 hours of a storm, then we generally finalize our plan for the storm, and that's when I reach out. And of course, all along with the superintendent and the mayor. I got to come up with a name of our 4 a.m. coffee club. Maybe that's what we'll call it, 4:30 a.m. on the day of a storm. But
It's very early in the morning.
yes. And no offense, superintendent, but I do call her second. A little later. So, but I wanted to say that, you know, it's sometimes not an easy task. You're looking at snow and ice. Snow and then the ice are 2 different tasks. They're 2 different animals to deal with. I've always said I'll take 10 inches of snow over a 1/4 inch of clear ice. I'll do it every day of the week. It's very hard to fight ice. It's treacherous for our drivers, even at the trucks. And if you get an extended period of freezing rain, they got to stay on the roads and just keep dumping salt. That's the only solution to that. So it takes about 4.5 hours for our 5 trucks to do the whole city. Closer to 6 hours when they got to go 5 miles an hour and try and stay on the road themselves. So, so in the gist of it, my communication with the mayor and the superintendent the night before, I always wait till the dinner time forecast, depending on the timing of the storm, so I can get as close to the storm as possible to give the final plan. The last 2 years, I am not going to lie to you, has been very difficult on fighting snow and ice because of timing. Ice and timing have been the two things that have seemed to stick with us the last 2 years in Greenfield. Roads are absolutely fine at 5:30 a.m., and all of a sudden it drops to 30 from 34 and they flash over. Buses are on the road. We're scrambling. Trucks are on the road, but like I said, it takes 4 hours. So, and the timing of the storms is exactly where commuters are going to work. Buses are getting on the road. We've been really good at times. We've hit it perfectly. We pre-treat at 2 a.m. and we're fine. So we're seeing more and more ice in my record keeping the last 4 or 5 years than we are snow in this area. And it's difficult to fight. So we're doing our best. We communicate and put the snow hat on over the ice hat. It's much easier on the budget too, secondary to the safety, but in other things, DPW, the superintendent and I have met. We've talked, brought her up to speed on the many things the DPW does for the school department. Every community is a little different. You know, we take care of the ball fields, we prep the sports fields, we mow all the grass, snow and ice control, snow removal, and anything else that comes along. Can't forget about vehicle maintenance of all the vehicles, so on and so forth. And anything else that pops up. I also met with the new facilities manager and explained how the easiest way is to communicate with the DPW and get something done in a school through the work order system to our office manager. We get the work order and we can assist. And I need to mention the central maintenance department, which I think most of you are very familiar with, which is under DPW now, and George Vandelinder. They're a big deal in the schools for electrical and plumbing and small carpentry
The
projects.
schools know George.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make that short. So, I mean, that's the gist of it. I mean, I'll be willing to take any questions. I did want to say that Chair Peretti and I had talked 2 years ago that this might be a good thing every couple of months, or if one of the members would like me here. The mayor calls me crazy. I like all the meetings, but I don't mind going to meetings. Or she may think I'm crazy. So I don't mind communicating. I think that this is a little different thing going forward for the DPW and the school system. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts, and I think open communication with the committee would be a good thing too.
For sure. And it gets you in front of our audience to hear things they might not normally hear about how we all work together. I appreciate you taking the time and explaining particularly the Sanderson Street project. Will that be done by the end of the calendar year? Do you know?
We anticipate that it's going to be done by fall, but
Okay.
again, if we're in the areas of the school, we have put in the parameters to finish it up the following spring or early summer.
Yeah.
We put a good length on it. It's a good distance. You don't know what you're going to find,
Yeah,
so.
great. Thank you. Are there questions from other school committee members for Director Warner? Member Johnson-Musson.
Thanks so much for the report. I'm assuming the Complete Streets is to make them also more wheelchair accessible, right? It's not just for walkers, or what would that look like?
Correct. Any sidewalk we replace or repair, it's built to ADA code. So, and in order for the Complete Streets grant to be approved and reimbursed, it all has to be to code. So yes, absolutely.
Mayor Wiedegardner, go ahead.
I may think he's crazy, but I don't call him crazy to his face. I just wanted to respond to that. My question for you, Director, is also on the Complete Streets. It may have been, it wasn't totally around accessibility, but because of where it's happening, may not be totally tangential to the high school, but it does benefit walkers. So how are they going to be impacted? What are their options if the sidewalk, regardless of how bad it is or non-existent it is, wasn't there? was there when they were walking to school. What happens when you have it torn up to put down? Do they have options? Is there a plan for that? I don't know how many walkers there are to the high school, so there may be a handful or there may be quite a few.
So I think some of them come up from the lower part of Silver Street, turn on a Chapman, and then they may go down Cleveland. I've seen a lot of walkers in the area. That's the way I come to work in the morning. But most of the areas, the sidewalks are non-existent, and they're probably choosing.
So they're already walking in the street or
They're probably choosing not to walk in
somebody's
the wetlands.
yard or something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can also look into that. There may be, if there's areas of sidewalk that we need to attach to and replace, then what's existing, I believe the contractor would, under regulation, would have to put some sort of temporary sidewalk on the edge of the road that would be fenced off
Okay.
on existing.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Secretary Ekstrom, go ahead.
The flip side of that being, there are a lot of people that drop their kids off at the high school. I am one of them. Well, I don't drop off, but I pick up. And it may be that when sidewalks are put in, that there will be more people who are walking and less people getting dropped off. And I always think about that when I'm thinking about, oh God, not Four Corners.
What?
School that's across from Duncan. I've lost my mind. Discovery School? Yeah, no. Newton, yes. Why, I can't remember that, but I always think about that in relation to Newton, because there are a lot of people over there that could walk or would walk, but because there aren't any sidewalks, and really it's a dangerous route to get there. That would change that dynamic as well. God, I can't believe I could remember that. Sorry.
You know, that jogged my memory on another project that we completed 2 summers ago. I put in for a safety improvements capital article to address some of the most dangerous areas in the city. And the middle school and the Federal Street School both fit code in the federal standard to be an actual school zone. So I think you've noticed out there we added the actual school zone flashing lights when school's in session or about to be in session. Took us a little while to catch up on the schedule and change the lighting around and the timing, but those 2 areas were added, and we've had a lot of positive feedback on that, and I'm sure it's helping at the crosswalks and the crossing guards, I hope. So, which means they're 20 miles an hour now, nothing more.
I know the superintendent wants to make a comment, but I'm making her wait until the school committee's done. Are there other questions or comments from the school committee? Go ahead, Superintendent DeBarge.
And now Mr. Warner's nervous. No, I did want to comment on how fantastic not only Marlo, but any of the folks that work with him have been in terms of communication and keeping me updated. You know, we do talk a lot around weather, unfortunately. That's been the primary. And the DPW has been accessible up until late evening and literally as early as 4:15 in the morning. So I want to just appreciate all of that work and communication, along with all of the facilities work and the communication with our new facilities director. It has been an exceptionally smooth and positive and collaborative relationship from my side. So I want to thank Marlo and the rest of the DPW.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good
Just
luck with the
dawned on me,
PT.
It's been 2 years since I've been
It's
on
amazing,
camera.
yeah. And we had that talk here when we were the Emergency Operations Center for COVID, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you. All right, we're moving on, and item number 4 is the budget update, and normally Andy Paquette, our esteemed business manager, would be here. He has been unavoidably redirected and unable to join us this evening, so I'm told the superintendent has some brief points to discuss related to the budget.
Yes, extremely brief. So what I just wanted to share is that at this point of the year, we are beginning to review all of the purchase orders that are open and having conversations with department heads and building administrators regarding anticipated spending for the remainder of the year, what money can be released, what needs to be retained as encumbered, so that we can meet our anticipated spending. And at this stage as well, nothing has been charged to any of the special revenue or revolving accounts, so you will see some lines in deficit because nothing's been charged to school choice, for example. So those adjustments are beginning to be made. So this is a very, as we're building FY23, we are evaluating and reviewing FY22 as often. So it's a very busy budget time for the schools. Those are the comments.
That's the comment.
That's it.
And of course, for anyone following along at home and for school committee members, all of the budget details are in the packet, as they always are for the regular school committee meeting. So thank you for that. And then regarding FY23, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
You're going to.
I'm gonna. So we have a deadline, if I'm remembering, like a publishing deadline for the superintendent's budget that comes up soon after our regular meeting in February. Yeah. And yeah, awesome. That was more just for like, this is where we're headed. Yeah, just a comment. Any questions from the school committee about the budget? Yes, Mayor Rita Gardner.
Will the budget subcommittee be giving an update under their category on the agenda?
No, I don't anticipate there's a budget committee update this week
Okay.
because there hasn't been a meeting.
It concerns me greatly, as the mayor, looking at the calendar, that, one, I have not been notified of any budget subcommittee meetings, and I am hoping that the budget subcommittee is on target and is developing the budget along with Mr. Paquette. So if anyone could enlighten me whenever you choose to do that, that would be a good thing. Thank you.
Secretary Ekstrom, please.
The budget subcommittee has not been meeting because there has been so much work that the superintendent and Mr. Paquette have been doing. However, my guess is, based on this meeting this evening, that there will be a budget meeting probably next week. And you are cordially invited, unless I'm not on the school committee or not on that meeting and whatever, but I'm quite certain you'll get an invitation. And to our new committee members, the budget is really confusing. You may not understand it the first time around. Don't worry about it. Ask lots of questions. Do everything to help you figure it out.
Mayor Rita Gardner, please.
I just know that it's a very rushed schedule. I acknowledge that. It's by charter. And it's like the school committee has a very short period of time as a committee to respond to what the budget subcommittee and the business manager have come up with before the budget actually has to be published and we have a public hearing. So I'm always looking for air in that schedule so that the whole committee has an opportunity to hear the explanation of the new budget and why it is the way it is before it actually even gets published, as opposed to after it's published. So I don't know if we're making opportunity in the schedule to get that happen, to have that happen. The school committee really does need to be able to see it at least, a couple of days. Have an opportunity to discuss it in a meeting before it's actually published, if possible. If not, certainly before it actually has to be voted on, and the two come fairly close together.
Well, I do want to mention that it isn't the school committee's budget at this point. It's the superintendent's budget, so we don't necessarily vote on it, but she does her presentation, and the budget committee, of course, will be working on it with her. And I think last year, I think we met every week once this time of year got to be. We met every week and met for like 2 hours. So
Mem-
it was, and I don't want to speak for anyone, but I would anticipate that same kind of thing would happen this year. My guess is that it will go much more smoothly this year because TMS has been working with us for so long and understands, and all of the individual line items have been cleaned up and all of those things. And also, we have a wonderful superintendent who will be there to do all of the things that she should be doing in relation to a budget being produced.
The committee does need to have an opportunity to ask questions. That's why
Absolutely.
I'm doing that.
Absolutely. The past 2 years, I think what our schedule has been for budget subcommittee meetings is right after our January meeting, we begin to have them until that publish of the public hearing. And I do not anticipate that will be any different this year. Did you want to? Okay. All right. That's the budget update. And let's do, in the packet, approval of the minutes from the last monthly meeting, which is on December 8th. Was on December 8th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 8, 2021?
So moved.
That's Vice Chair Wall, and a second.
Second.
They're after the budget stuff if anyone needs them. That was a second from Member Johnson Musad. Any discussion of the minutes? Not hearing any. Let's just do a vote. Any noes on the minutes? Any abstentions to the minutes?
I will abstain. I was not at that meeting.
An abstention from the mayor. All else will be recorded as yes, and that passes. And now we're into item 6, which is public comment. So the way it works, hopefully folks who are interested in commenting have already signed up. If not, you will have an opportunity to sign up with Susan Farber over here, our amazing recording secretary. Whoever's first on the list will come up to the chair there. If you have someone who is moral support or someone who wants to speak on the same topic, you can come up together. That's totally fine. You press the button on the mic to make the little collar turn green, and you will have 3 minutes. Please tell us first who you are and what town you live in, and then you can say whatever you would like. Who's first?
Emily Green, followed by Wendy Goodman.
And a reminder to our new secretary that you do the timing. Here, you want to use this one?
Yes.
Yes. It might, you might have to, yep, try again.
Yeah.
Hear me?
No, there you go.
Okay. My name is Emily Green. I live in Greenfield, and I'm a member of Racial Justice Rising. I want to acknowledge right away that I have no experience in education. I'm a retired nurse, and I'm speaking from my heart. I want to acknowledge the extremely difficult job everyone has who works in the school system, from teaching assistants, teachers to the superintendent, in helping our future, each and every student that is our future, to grow and thrive and find their place in making this a better world. You really do have our future in your hands, and I know you want to do the things that will help each student have the opportunity to play a part in making this a better world, a more compassionate world, and a loving place. That is why I encouraged my coworkers in Racial Justice Rising, a local group here, to write you all the letter that I sent out to you on Monday morning, voicing the concerns that we and 7 other groups, as well as community members, have about the situation going on in the schools with the students since they returned to in-person school. I don't know all of the situation, but I have listened to 3 of the meetings. We want to encourage you to look at the severe stress students are under, trying to cope with their lives being upended by the pandemic and the rising awareness of racism in our country since George Floyd, that leaves them with unpredictable views of what life holds for them. Many were under stress already before this happened, for many reasons. Perhaps worrying about whether they're going to have food on their plate, whether they're going to have a place to live, and whether their parents are going to lose their jobs. We want to encourage you to look at these disruptive behaviors as a cry for help, as a student who needs someone to listen to them and to their fears and problems. They need a mental health counselor who will help them to see they can be a part of making this world better. They do not need to be punished. I believe they would be helped by having each group of students from pre-K to 12 have one class a week. This is just a recommendation, but to sit in a circle and express how they feel and be guided in how to do conflict resolution with a trained mental health counselor and a time where racism is talked about. I feel it would be
5 seconds left. Apologize for the interruption. 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, whoops. You all received the letter, and I encourage you to look at it and the things we're recommending. Thank you. I really appreciate the work you do.
My apologies for interrupting.
Thank you. That was her first time doing the timing. She's going to be doing better next time, I promise. It can only go up for there. Ms. Green, I'm sorry. We can only go up from there.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Goodman. I live in Greenfield. I'm on the Human Rights Commission, and that's actually how this came to my attention. I do not speak tonight as a Human Rights Commissioner. I speak as a citizen. So, and I wrote something up that was actually quite elegant, but I'm not going to read it because I don't do that well. I'd rather submit it to you. I was pretty unaware of what was going on in the high schools. I mean, I read something in the paper until it was brought forward to the Human Rights Commission. And so I went back and I looked at what happened on the last 3 different committee meetings. And I was shocked, as I know you all are. And actually, I'm going to read the first line of what I wrote because, first off, I want to acknowledge what a challenging time this is that we're all in, and especially for our schools. That the return to in-school learning has people returning to the school community after almost 2 years of separate, diverse, and often traumatic experiences. So it doesn't surprise me, it's all over the country, that what we're dealing with here is not unique here. One of my really big concerns at this moment that I'm not reading this is that I'm not seeing this on the agenda. So many people came and were so upset about what's going on, and I'm not hearing anything back about what's being done. I would have hoped that it would have been like almost the first topic that was talked about is what's going on in our schools. I know you're all doing a lot of work. We have amazing resources here of how to rebuild communities. We've got restorative justice. We have peer mediation that used to be in the schools. We've got community building experts. The idea of going down the path of bringing in a police officer. Personally, forthrightness, I am opposed to it for many reasons, but when we hear people, students saying that their right to education, that their access to education would be blocked because they have traumatic experiences with officers, I looked it up and it was like, okay, the right to education is a human right. It is designated as one of the human rights. So I really started questioning even the consideration, once people are saying that they have been traumatized, that they would not have access to education if there were these officers put in the school, to really look at that consideration and to really seek to build the school community the way we want students and teachers and staff to be able to go back out to the community, build those skills of communication. I know you're looking at it, but it is the important difference with everything that's going on in the world and the zeitgeist of mistrust. How do we have our schools be places that build new skills and new
I'm afraid that's
orientation
time.
that people can take out into the community? Thank you for your service. I really hope that we hear more about what's going on this topic because it's important.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carissa Clifford, and I'm a Greenfield resident. I've been watching as parents in Massachusetts and nationally have addressed school boards with great passion and concern for their children, and there seems to be a disconnect. In general, the boards don't seem to be impacted by the statements, and policies don't change even to a small degree. I'm not talking about issues like if the school should have an SRO or not. I'm talking about larger issues. There are many, but today I'm going to stick with the mask mandate. There seems to have been a gradual progression away from the concerns of the taxpayers and instead on the agendas of certain associations, specifically the NEA and the MTA. These unions now appear to be setting policy in a way that's all-encompassing and unchallenged. I'm not sure why that is or how that happened. The problem I have with that is that the general public believes the power lies in the hands of those we elect locally, and that doesn't seem to be the case. One size doesn't always fit all. And since only members vote for association leaders, they aren't accountable to us. I think another reason that school boards in general don't seem to be affected by parent and taxpayer concerns on the larger issues is because additional funding is always needed, but it comes with conditions. The federal government has allocated a large sum of money to the states under the CARE Act, and I understand that the Greenfield Public School System will have received a total of $6.4 million by the end of September of next year. Certain requirements had and will have to be met, and they will be met, because it's just too much money to pass up. The requirement here is that every student, teacher, and administrator must wear masks at all times. There is no choice, at least not for the children. An adult can get around the mandate by finding another job, but kids, especially those from disadvantaged families, have no other option. And I'm not just talking about parents who disagree with mask wearing, but also parents who are afraid that their child is still at risk of contracting the illness despite the interventions. I believe that as parents, we deserve a robust discussion and have real input into the important issues. But my concern is that it won't happen because that's not what the government and the unions want. And I just want to close by saying that we voted for you because we have faith in your ability to think critically and thoughtfully about what's best for our children. I'm asking you to stand up to the powers that be when parents bring concerns to you that differ from the agenda set by those who don't know us, our community, or what's in our best interest. And specifically, if a mask or vaccine mandate should come up, I would hope that we do have a hearing and some real input into that. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I have two.
Tell us who you are and where you live.
Sorry. Doug Selwyn from Greenfield. Two items I'd like to talk about. The first has already been addressed by a couple of speakers, so I just want to add my piece that there were committees focused on student placement and issues around race and justice last year that started and really sort of ended before they got anywhere. So I would like to encourage those committees to be reconstituted or something. I'd like to see them active again and looking at the issues that are clearly in front of us related to race and class and the tensions in the schools, exacerbated, of course, by COVID. So I'd like to see those committees working and involving the community in conversation. And the second I would like to advocate is related to public comment, especially around issues that are contentious or where there's strong disagreement. The current policy really allows for just a few speakers, and I don't think that's enough. I also know that you couldn't really function if you had an hour or an hour and a half of public comment and then had the rest of your agenda at the same meeting. You'd all go nuts and nothing much would get done. So I'm wondering if there could be a meeting a month dedicated to public comment to exchange with the community, with the idea that maybe one of you only would attend each meeting, so you wouldn't all burn out. And the meeting could be recorded, but would be an opportunity to exchange or hear from people without the time pressure of having to fit a certain number of people into 15 minutes or whatever. Again, I know the meetings are too long as it is, so long public comment at the front end really, I don't know, serves so well. But have especially these days, it seems crucial that the community and the school committee are working together, are hearing each other, are really appreciating what's going on out there. And right now, I come to a lot of meetings and there's rarely anybody here to talk unless there's a specific issue at a specific moment that happens to be on the agenda. And I don't think that serves us well as a community. We really need to be talking with and listening to each other. I would encourage childcare being offered during the times of meetings so that families can attend and have their kids attended to. And that if possible, some of these listening sessions happen in different areas of the town so that people who live away from the Zahn Center who maybe don't have transportation or for whom attending is difficult can still be heard. So I think the communication is crucial. And so I'd like to encourage whatever can happen that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Don't be shy. All right, hearing none, we will move on. Oh, they've sat so patiently. My favorite part of the meeting. Our student representatives, we've got Brielle and Shane here today. Take it away, guys.
Hi, so we're going to begin the report with Student Council. A few weeks ago, the Student Council put on a staff appreciation breakfast on Friday, December 16th. They had a Yankee swap and potluck dinner as their December bonding. We're also planning a month-long series of activities for mental health awareness, and this will take place in February and will include art activities, a dodgeball tournament, and other activities. Stay tuned for more details. That's currently a work in progress. We're still collecting warm clothing items to donate to the middle school. If you have new or gently used boots, coats, hats, gloves, sweatshirts, or sweaters, we will gladly take them to the middle school. We will also begin planning our school-wide polar plunge to raise money and awareness for the Special Olympics, and currently we have raised over $600 from Pennyworth's loan.
So now I'm going to talk about Key Club. So Key Club is holding the grand reopening of Green Wave Essentials, which was formerly named the Community Closet. And it's going to be on Thursday, January 13th, with a ribbon cutting ceremony. The students are excited about the updated free store and new items, which include warm clothing, non-perishable food items, personal care items, and school supplies. We're also hosting the Sandy Hook Promise See Something, Say Something training on February 1st, which will enable students to help themselves and each other stay safe.
For a Global Glimpse, 4 GHS juniors have been selected to participate in the Global Glimpse program this summer. They will be fundraising for their trip throughout the year and attending a virtual training in preparation for their departure. 1 student is traveling to Ecuador, 2 to the Dominican Republic, and 1 to Panama. The former Global Glimpse leader no longer teaches at GHS, so they are currently looking for a new teacher to take over this role. 1 is currently applying for this position directly with Global Glimpse.
So now for sports, so as of writing this, the ice hockey team is 4-3 and have home games Saturdays at 6:30 at the arena in Greenfield. The boys basketball team is 1-4 and their next home game is January 20th versus Mahar. Girls basketball is 2-4 with the next home game Thursday at 5. You can go to Arbiter Live to get all the schedules for Greenfield Athletics.
French Club had a great time making crepes last week with Chef Yaffe. They look forward to going ice skating on Thursday, January 27th after school, as well as their Valentine Candygram fundraiser beginning in early February.
NHS continues to do peer mentoring work with the volunteering with the 8th grade advisory groups on Friday mornings. They are trying to model good citizenship and how to be successful students. Plans have begun to visit 5th grade classrooms for the second semester to bring the positive peer influence to the middle school. Some members have been volunteering at GMS for their Beyblades club, and others are working on getting our Relay for Life team up and running.
For Spanish Club, this month, Spanish Club enjoyed the flamenco dance at their meeting. They're planning on a cooking night in the next couple of weeks and are planning a movie fundraiser at the Garden Theater, as well as a bingo night at the Moose Family Center. Looking for details coming soon from them.
AV Club has continued their work on audio and visuals in movies and films.
For Library Club, they hosted a guest speaker from the Greenfield Public Library on Tuesday who taught students how to crochet stress ball fidgets. On February 2nd at 6 p.m., the Library Club will host another book-to-movie event for the book and film Paper Towns by John Green in the GHS Auditorium. Copies of the book will be available in GHS and Greenfield Public Libraries. For Spectrum, this Friday will be our first meeting this year, and we're looking forward to planning our February bake sale and fundraiser.
So just some side notes, midterms are canceled next week due to challenges brought on by COVID, with an expected high amount of both students and staff missing this week. Administration canceled them, leaving students with the opportunity to make up missing classwork within those half days. The GHS music concert was also postponed to a later date due to COVID cases in the area, but is confirmed to take place in the future.
Thank you, that is all.
Thank you, guys. I had a thought and I lost it. I'm sorry, that was the pause there. I wanted to comment on something. Is ice skating French specifically, or they're just going ice skating?
I think ice skating is
I'm
open.
messing with you.
Ice skating's, yeah, you can always go, but that's specifically French.
You guys are great. Thank you.
Chair, could I ask him a question?
Oh, please, any questions? Yes, Mayor Rita Gardner, go ahead.
It's not a test question. Could you tell me a little bit more about the free store? I caught a glimpse of it. Where do you get your donations, and how did this come about?
So in Key Club, we've had this in the past before, but since we're back in person, we're bringing it up again. So we get donations from the students, and we're also getting donations for the middle school to open theirs too. So basically it's just this room, and we named it the Essentials. And a member of Key Club she's specifically working on it, and she did a great job. We have like a rack with clothes, and I haven't been in there yet because we haven't opened it, but from my understanding, it's a lot of clothes, and specifically winter gear, because a lot of students don't have jackets and all of that stuff. And I don't know how the middle school is going because I haven't been there, but I'm assuming it's the same thing, getting stuff from students, maybe even teachers, and for the middle school, it's like smaller clothing, so stuff you grew out of.
Thank you.
Member Johnson-Musad, go ahead.
Thanks so much for the report. I think at prior meetings, maybe you, Shane, I can't remember, but someone expressed concern about kind of student compliance with the mask mandates, and I'm just wondering how that's going. Are you seeing people wearing masks, and what do you think could be effective at increasing mask use if it's needed?
So unfortunately, at least on my behalf, I haven't seen a lot of positive progression on that front. It is still a lot of the same issues that I brought forth at the last two meetings, where it's a lot of students just generally ignoring the restrictions, and when they are asked to bring the mask back up, traditionally it is ignored and they continue on as before. So I personally don't know how exactly that could be better enforced. I just think that generally pushing teachers to, and I know that it's not as easy as it sounds, but just trying to get teachers to stay on top of talking to kids and making sure that they are wearing their masks properly, because a lot of it is just the fact that it's a lot of being enabled when nothing is brought up and they aren't told to really change anything, then they're just going to develop the mindset that it's okay to continue to wear masks below the nose or not at all. So as long as they are pushed to do it the right thing and continue to wear their masks properly, I think that maybe there can be change, but that has to start by teachers actually pushing for that to happen.
I do hear a lot of teachers telling students to pull their masks up, so I think that isn't really a problem. I think it's just the students and figuring out how to get it to work on their heads.
Any further questions from the school committee? You guys good? Thank you, guys. Did you have something? Member Martini, go ahead.
I wondered if I could make a comment.
Of course. Yeah, go ahead.
Fill in a little detail in regards to the middle school winter clothing project. I would just like to thank Community Action for donating 50 winter coats to the middle school, and also thank Warm the Children for donating a similar number of sets of hats, scarves, and mittens. So there doing quite well with that project, and I expect they'll continue. The student council is happily organizing those things and maybe raising more. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you guys again. We got our administration reports. ASKP, flip it to you.
Hi, thank you. Some updates on our ELA curriculum. We are finished with the Learn and Prepare phase, and we are happy that our literacy vision is now published. All stakeholders were pivotal in creating this vision. I've put the link in the document, and my report will be added to the documents later. I apologize that you didn't have it in advance. And you can review that, but that was brought not only to teachers and students, but also to our school council, so parents and community members could weigh in on that as well. We're using that to move into our Investigate and Select, where we are going to spend the next 6 to 8 weeks trying to figure out which 2 curriculum resources will be the best choices for Greenfield, and then we'll be asking teachers to weigh in as to whether they would like to actually pilot one or the other. Then we'll spend the time piloting, collecting data, and making a decision so that we can have a final decision by June and order all the materials needed, get professional development in-house for our teachers, and have it be ready to be launched in September. So I know K through 5 teachers are very excited about that and seeing this all unfold. Our math curriculum, we are continuing our work with AVMR. They are coming to Federal Street. Actually, I think they were there today at a faculty meeting, and then they're going to come back and continue their work on January 28th with the middle school and Federal Street. The nice thing about the work that we're doing with them, though, is they've allowed the Discovery School and Newton School math coaches and interventionists to join as well, so that those folks are bringing back the same math intervention tools and instructional practices to the other elementary schools, so that we're not working in silos anymore, so it's been really exciting. We also just got notified from DESE that there was an additional opportunity to get some grant funding for our ELA curriculum. So I have applied for that, and we're just waiting to see if we've been approved. We also have applied for additional funds for illustrative math. The middle school had gone through this whole process of picking a math curriculum last year during COVID, and they're actually piloting illustrative math right now and have decided to go forward with that. And that's exciting, so we'll hopefully get some additional funds to help support additional PD for them, as well as the resources for the middle school. As I indicated on January 28th, we do have another district-wide professional development day. We're excited. We have a lot planned for that day. We have trauma-informed instructional practices coming, where the presenter will be talking about teaching to strengths and an asset-based mentality for teachers, instructional assistants. AVMR Math Academy is coming back. We'll also be doing a culturally responsive equity analysis survey with our teachers on curriculum. And our elementary folks will be doing some Eureka math discussions and curriculum development per grade level. Our instructional assistants that day will also be participating in a roles and responsibilities course along with a professional boundaries course. So we're looking forward to that PD day. The Beacon group at GCC, our collaboration with them, had a very exciting Greenfield holiday pop-up market. If you had the chance to get downtown and spend any time that weekend, they were selling their artwork, and on Saturday they had a student group who launched their interior car detailing business. I was their first customer, so it was very exciting, but they did a phenomenal job. They had a steady stream of cars all day, and they were able to pay back their startup loan and make a profit, so it was very exciting to see them actually get into this business sense and really be entrepreneurs and feel good about being able to pay back their loan and be successful. So it was very positive, and really it was an exciting weekend. On Tuesday, December 14th, before we went away for break, we had a district-wide mentor and mentee meeting. There were 55 of us invited, and what we spent the afternoon doing was creating positive ornaments for our mentor-mentee tree. There's pictures included that you'll be able to see later, and then everyone went around and actually just told us what their ornament was and something positive that they could reflect on either in their instructional practice, their collegial experience as a mentee with some of their mentors. And, you know, one of my greatest joys was being able to work with all of them in this new role. So it's been very exciting to be part of that group. As many of you know, we've been talking about the elementary library assessment and equity audit that's been going on. There's been some questions that I've been fielding after the recorder highlighted this event. So I had talked to not only our own district library media specialist, but Laura Luker, who's been helping us as our contracted librarian. We've also hired Deborah Kern recently, and she started with us this last weekend. She retired from the Dickinson Memorial Library in Northfield, so we have another certified librarian on board. But we wanted just to make sure that everyone understood the weeding process. So there's really some specific information on the method that they use to weed books, the guidelines that they use to make those determinations, and then ultimately what they pick will be brought forth, the collection, to you to actually surplus, counted as surplus. So there is a process. I think many people are under the impression that Laura just was going in the library and making these decisions on her own and picking and choosing what books Greenfield kept or didn't. So I really outlined that for everybody, and you'll be able to read that online as well. I really want to send a heartfelt thank you to Jim Fotopoulos, though. I had the pleasure of having a phone conversation, and he has made a donation, a generous donation to all of us that we'll be talking about later on the agenda to support our library collection. But he wrote me a letter, and I really just wanted to share his last line because I think it really sums up the quality of the work and why we're doing what we're doing. He said, "Our libraries are the magic carpet to the world for our children," and I just thought that was really heartfelt and really meant a lot. So I appreciate what he did in his donation. And then lastly, we have Greenfield's Winter Carnival coming up, hard to believe, but the weekend of February 5th, and as our Title I table will be back in action on Sanderson Street. We'll be there from about 9:30 to 12:30. We have some books and some math game giveaways for folks, and we really encourage our students and our families to stop by the Rec Department office on Sanderson Street as we celebrate the 100th Winter Carnival Family Fun Fest. So we look forward to being part of that. So thank you.
May I ask a question?
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Karen Patino at ASKP. Go ahead, Secretary Exton.
For people who are playing along but aren't normally cognizant of the lingo, what does Title I mean?
It is a federal grant that we get that offers us additional funding to offer intervention supports to our students. All of our schools and district are Title I eligible except for the Academy of Early Learning. So it provides us with not only people, such as our ELA or our math interventionists, but also with materials and supplies to support intervention for any student in need.
Thank you. So much more eloquent than me saying, you know, a bunch of stuff that we need.
Other questions? Member Johnson-Musad, go ahead.
Two questions. Number one, is the car detailing business still available for people, and how do I sign up?
My husband said the same thing. He asked me last week, he's like, can I call that kid? And I said, you missed your opportunity. So they are continuing, but they're going to hold off to the warmer weather.
Well, good for them.
Yes.
Wise. And my other question is about the Professional Development Day. Could you give us a little bit behind the scenes in terms of how you're choosing what professional development to offer on that day and what drives those decisions?
Could we speak to that jointly after my report?
Yep. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Great.
There's definitely more additions to come, so.
Got it. Okay.
Other school committee questions, please, go ahead. Member Deneve.
I was curious about the GCC-GHS Beacon Learning Group. Is this something that happens continually? Do they create or help students create business opportunities for themselves throughout the year, or is this a one-time thing? And what other businesses are happening if it is an ongoing thing?
So our GCC-GHS Beacon Learning is an alternative pathway for our high school students. It just began this year. It's grant funded. It was in collaboration for the last 2 years between stakeholders in each party to create pathways for students who are struggling to meet graduation requirements. So half of their afternoon is spent down at the downtown campus, where they engage in alternative pathways to meet graduation credits. So one of the things that they actually did was create these entrepreneurial businesses, and it was driven out of student interest, not so much that that's what the program entails. So the director there, Max Fripp, has been leading them not only in the Ice House curriculum, which is about finding your entrepreneurial soul, and really showing kids how to become independent leaders about something they're passionate about. But I think some of those passions have actually sparked them to be engaged learners again and want to continue to get their credits to get that diploma.
Okay, I appreciate that, because
No
people have
problem.
asked me about entrepreneurial possibilities for students and have brought that up before in emails.
Great.
Other school committee questions or comments? Member Martini, you look like you're ready. Yeah, go ahead.
You can see my pen furiously flashing. I really just have a couple of questions. In regards to the part of your report about Ela Curriculum, I see that you're going to be coming up with 2 potential options, and I'm wondering how many options are within the larger fields that you're considering, and how are you getting those? And I wonder, what are they?
Those are all great questions. We just finished the Learn and Prepare phase. It's actually a DESE cohort that we're involved in. It's a professional learning network that we're working with on the state. And it's very structured and led by curriculum leaders from DESE so that we make wise choices. And it's really actually been very eye-opening for me, as well as the Curriculum Council, which is made up of our 4 ELA coaches. So this part that we're beginning right now is the investigate and select. So we're looking at curate, we're looking at ed reports, we're also looking at other schools in the area that may have some of the choices that are available. If you go on any DESE curriculum website, you'll see there's probably anywhere from 10 to 15 choices that could be made. What we had to decide, though, are parameters and priorities in Greenfield, and really thinking about our student body, because not every choice is actually going to align with the needs of our student. So they really make you focus on what do Greenfield students need, and then look at those ed reports and the curate reports, which are ratings by teachers who actually are using them at certain grade levels and providing feedback. And then we look to make sure that whatever we choose is aligned with the state standards. Some of them out there don't get high ratings for being aligned well with our Massachusetts state standards, so we're looking at all of that data. Our first meeting is next Thursday when we're going to start all of this, so we'll spend about 6 weeks probably looking at 8 to 12 and trying to figure out 2 to 3 that actually would fit into the needs of Greenfield. And when we get down to that point, I'll update you every month as we unfold to all of that. We'll also be getting more teacher voice incorporated into the process so that K through 5 teachers are part of that as well. So we'll be rolling out information at faculty meetings so that there is more input and collaboration with everyone who will ultimately have to be using these resources to educate our children.
Great, and I just have one other follow-up. So I see that you're planning on providing updates at certain points to faculty as you go along, and I'm wondering if there are plans to also provide similar updates to parents and members of the community, perhaps on the school website or by some other means?
So the resource we've been using is the school councils, because they are an avenue where they have minutes and post minutes, and they are open meetings for parents to attend. But I also can encourage elementary and middle school principals to include it in their newsletters monthly, or provide monthly updates if folks don't get an opportunity to attend school council meetings.
Thanks.
Great.
Other questions or comments? I just want to say I'm so happy that the Professional Development Day is not the day after Martin Luther King Day. So thank you. Or thank you. We voted on the calendar, right? Thank you. All right. And thank you, ASKP. And now we've got the Superintendent Report.
Okay, so I apologize, it's a little bit lengthy, but, so the first thing is to just review the ongoing work. There are a lot of process and protocols that need to be reviewed and updated, which is continual work, and that I anticipate will actually continue well past this year. So as we interact with particular situations, we discover that a process in district that's currently in place may not be meeting our needs anymore, or that needs to be updated based on updated policy, we're making adjustments to those things. So that's ongoing. So the FY23 budget preparation is continuing. Andy and I have had meetings with all of the department heads, such as our facilities director, our IT director, as well as all of the building principals, to get their budget requests. I asked them to reach out to all of the staff in their buildings to determine what needs they had for instruction for next year. I realize this is a transitional year where we go from whatever prior process was in place, how prior superintendent did budget preparation, to how I do it. I realize that's a transition. But the conversations that I was having with administrators and department heads is think a year in advance and try to think of what it is you may need for the following academic year. So things I give as examples is our culinary teachers, for example, or our art teachers. How much paint do you think you'll need all of next school year? Which I realize is very challenging to think about, but that helps us build a more accurate budget for the following year. So I asked administrators to go through that process with staff, and then Andy and I and Karen met, reviewed things such as our online learning programs, what type of student usage or adult usage do we have, and made decisions about things that we may keep versus things that we would reallocate those resources. We also were looking at different programs in terms of being aligned with some of the process that has been individual by school, and that we're creating some district-wide consistent process. So making things such as online intervention resources consistent across all of the elementary schools, instead of having a variety of things that are used by a few people in each building. So those types of changes are all of what we've been doing up through this stage of the budget. So we are working with payroll to review the current staffing. There has been substantial change, as you no doubt are aware. So we need to make sure that all of the people are aligned with what we anticipate for next academic year. Any requests that have been made, that we account for those as well. And then after all of that prep work occurs, I will be creating the superintendent's FY23 budget and a presentation to share with you and the public about what is involved in each of the department requests, why lines have changed, gone up, gone down, as best as I will be able to with no history or little history. So all of that is in the process, and I have no doubt that we will be well on the timeline or ahead of the timeline. So we're moving along in that regard, but it is a substantial amount of work to get the budget done. We're also continuing, one of the things that Karen and I are doing is meeting with folks regarding our communications. You have a communications consultant. So we're working with him. The first place that we're starting, because it's an organizational issue, is how we can help improve communication from the building level, from our office, how we might use the website differently. So really day-to-day communication, which is operational, and then we'll move to the grander communications discussion when, if and when you guys do your strategic plan. So right now, we're focusing on the operational. So staffing, we're very pleased that Derek Morrison has joined us as our new high school principal. Today was day 8. So, he's getting the lay of the land up at the high school. And one of the things I will say that we have talked about already, that the student reps brought up, is mask compliance. That has been one of the areas he has highlighted already. So something that is a focus for us. John Cavallo, who was our acting principal at the high school, has very graciously moved to one of the associate principal spots at our middle school. Previously, there were 2 associate principals at the middle school, but that model changed somewhere between before and now. And so, given the challenges that have been highlighted about how our students have come back after remote learning, it seemed definitely to be a good decision to have 2 associate principals at this point. And John has a substantial amount of training that he received regarding the use of restorative circles. So all the more beneficial to have him partnering with Lynn and Chris at the middle school. So we are hiring staff, but we are still short on filled positions. So I included our school spring site so that if anyone is interested in employment opportunities in Greenfield, they can check that out. Instructional assistants are one position that we need, I think, in most buildings. That's an area that's been very challenging. And substitutes are of substantial need in all of our departments. At this stage, we've been quite fortunate in terms of our ability to keep the buildings open with our staff, but that has taken a lot of creativity and flexibility on behalf of our staff who are helping out in a variety of positions. So having additional qualified substitutes would be exceptionally helpful. So if anybody's interested. Okay, so I have a number of updates related to COVID, which I'll go through. So we did anticipate an increase in cases after the winter break, and we have seen those. This week, Kelly, our nurse leader, who's here with us tonight, communicates we have to report cases to DESE once a week. So that's when Kelly gives me the update. So last week, upon our return from vacation, we had 71 cases, and this week we had 91. So, but we did not see the exponential increase that we saw from between prior to vacation to when we returned. We at least doubled, and we did not see that doubling again. So while we certainly do not want 91 cases, the percentage of our school community that is affected by COVID, as reported, last week was 4%, and this week is 5%. So I don't think we would have been, we don't want this many cases, but I think we would not have been completely surprised to see a greater increase than what we saw, just based on numbers at the state level. So that was a positive, I hate to say, but that was a little bit of a positive report compared to where we could have been.
It's all
So
relative.
it is relative. So, but anyway, so unfortunately, I will continue to share that it is possible. We have avoided staffing shortages to the point where we've had to close any of our buildings, but I've put this in parent updates, and I continue to ask or encourage families to consider finding backup childcare because if we have a substantial amount of staff that is unable to report due to illness, that is a possibility. I know other districts have had to deal with that, and we've been very fortunate to this point. But I want to keep saying that, as I would not want families to be caught unaware. You know, when we have a snowstorm coming, as Barlow talked about, he's looking at it 2 days ahead of time. And most of us are checking the weather periodically. So we're sort of anticipating when there's snow or ice coming. We are not going to be able to anticipate a staffing shortage. And if I know an evening before, I will certainly communicate, but that may not be the case. So I hope that we continue to have the run that we have had. So the Commissioner of Education, Commissioner Riley, extended the mask mandate this week until February 28th. So I will post that guidance on our website, and I'll include the information in my update tomorrow. This is in addition to your current policy that requires mask wearing in school anyway. So we will continue with that. Related to masks, the Department of Education provided KN95 masks to all schools, and we received our allocation during the winter break, which was very appreciated. And then this Wednesday, there was a superintendent's meeting with the commissioner, during which he clarified that apparently there were 2 different types of masks that had been distributed to schools, one of which unfortunately had a lower level of filtration than what had been anticipated to be with the masks. And so the lower efficiency masks had efficiency rating, filtration percentages between 25 and 48%, rather than the 87% of the second type of mask. And of course, I ran out to the box that we had to discover that we had the lower efficiency masks. So we bought a higher efficiency type of KN95 mask. We bought 5,000 of those. We also have 2,000 child-size masks on order, but those are a little bit delayed in terms of delivery. So they're being distributed to our staff and students. They're being distributed right now with the goal that if people would like to continue wearing them, that they'll have the opportunity to go and see if they can find somewhere to purchase their own that they'd like to continue wearing. It is not mandatory for any staff or students to wear KN95 masks at this point. A cloth mask or disposable mask are still acceptable, but a suggestion was made, guidance was provided that it may be advisable to have the higher filtration. So we do have them available. They came in, the adult size came in, and are being distributed to the schools. So students can go to the nurse's office to request them if they'd like them. Same with teachers, they can request to get some if they'd like them. We will use the lower efficiency KN95s. They still provide a higher level of filtration than is reported for a cloth mask. So they're not going to be harmful to anyone. It's just not what had been anticipated. So those are available. We are continuing to follow DESE guidance in relation to COVID-19. I did send an update home to parents on January 4th that outlined all of the or as far as we could remember, all of the mitigation strategies that are in place. There may be some other things that are happening, like the presence of disposable masks for people. I don't believe I included that on the list, but they're available. So that list is on the website, and again, does follow all of the guidance that we have from DESE for mitigation. At this point, Kelly and I have been in communication regarding our athletics. We are allowing athletics to continue at this time. From my perspective, first, it is a voluntary activity, whereas school attendance is not. So the other thing is that our athletic directors confirmed our high school gym has capacity of about 1,000. And our highest attended game this season has been 350. So all of our other athletic events have had lower attendance than that, and he said all of the attendees had more than ample space to maintain social distancing during attendance at those activities. And we have required that everyone, including spectators, mask in attendance at our athletic events, even though MIAA did not specifically outline spectators, but we did require that. So at this stage, we are allowing it. All of our interscholastic athletes continue to have to participate in the pooled testing, which is done by our nurses. And, you know, Kelly and I will continue to monitor the situation. There have not been clusters of outbreak with our athletes. So, but again, we will continue to monitor that. And if the situation worsens in terms of athletics, then certainly I will make a change if we need to. As our students mentioned, we've rescheduled the band concert, band and chorus concert, and that will be rescheduled. We're committed to making sure our students get to highlight their talents, so that will definitely be rescheduled at a later point in the year. And I was excited to be able to share that midterms were canceled, but they took that one too, which they should. They're their midterms. I don't have to take them. So one of the things that I think is important is that we've heard a significant amount of stress from some of our students and anxiety about missing school because they were getting closer to midterms. And some of the students were hesitant to report that they were not feeling well, or potentially were coming back a little sooner, hoping to come back a little sooner than maybe they should have because of that anxiety. So that situation certainly played into the decision to cancel the midterms. We do not want, nor do we need to add any stress to any of our students this year, or staff for that matter. Staff who've been out or trying to address the needs of all the students in their classes who've been out. So it was not something we felt that we needed to continue. The other piece that is fantastic is our food service department. Our new food service director, Greta, and our staff have made arrangements for any students who are out due to COVID for their families to be able to come pick up grab-and-go breakfast and lunch for the days that they are home. So they would be able to do one breakfast and one lunch per student per day. Any Greenfield student age, up through the age of 21 would be able to come and pick them up if they're absent due to quarantine or illness. And obviously we don't want anyone who is actively ill to come pick up, but parents definitely can come pick up without their students if they need to. It's going to be starting Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day, and it will be from 11:30 to 1. Pickup will be at the middle school. All of this, of course, will be posted on the website and communicated out tomorrow with the parent update. The exact location for pickup at the middle school is still being ironed out, but it will be a central location at the middle school. So that was extremely exciting news. That's hot off the press today. So one of the things that Kelly and I have been talking about is the recent change in DESE guidance around the isolation period. So on December 30th, that change came into effect where DESE said students only had to stay home in isolation for 5 days following a positive test, and that if there was no fever, without fever-reducing medication, and they were improving, their symptoms were dramatically improved, that they could come back to school on day 6. We have identified some challenges with that, in that unfortunately we have students coming back to school who are still actively symptomatic after day 5. And we're also finding that through nursing reports, most of our students who are ill with COVID are requiring the 10-day period at home. So at this point, due to the fact that we're seeing some unfortunate trends in the schools, until January 28th, which is 2 weeks from now, we are going back to the 10-day of being outside of school. Unfortunately, when we have students who are coming in who are still ill, It's just increasing the risk to the school community. And right now, with the rise in cases, which we believe will come down shortly, that we're seeing a spike from the holidays and all of the socialization. So we believe it will come down, which is why the date of the 28th, to give some time for this surge to subside, and we'll reevaluate at this point. But, so at this stage, it will be back to the 10 days. And what we are cognizant of is that some people do recover more quickly than others. So on or after day 6, if a student has gone to get a rapid test and they've gone out for it, such as, you know, one of the pharmacies in town or another testing site where identifiable information is on the test report, such as their name, if they have a negative test on or after day 6, they can contact their school nurse, and then they would be able to come back because they've got a negative test. Or if a student is completely free of symptoms following day 6, if they would like, they can contact their school nurse, and arrangements will be made for the nurse to meet them right on the outside of the building. We anticipate in the foyers of each building, and our nurses would be happy to do a rapid test for that student right there. And if they are in fact negative at that time, they'd be able to re-enter school. But outside of that, we're going to have the 10 days again until the 28th. So I realize that that creates some childcare concerns, but really our primary motivation at this stage is to act in an abundance of caution and to try to mitigate the spread even further. So we really need to highlight the fact that students who are showing signs of illness need to not come to school. They need to stay home. Our nurses have all seen students coming to school with active symptoms that are consistent with COVID-19. So, and I do realize again that it's very challenging for families at times to miss work or to identify appropriate childcare, especially with COVID-19. But again, it's increasing the risk for the school community. So we're really asking people whose children are showing signs of illness to keep them home. If anyone has a child who's showing signs of illness, they can either contact their own doctor, or our school nurses have been an incredible resource for the community. So they'd be very happy to answer questions, but we're asking, if you're not sure what's happening with your child, please keep them home. And we are trying to figure out ways, we're working on some logistics about how to improve access to some of the instructional materials while our students are out. We realize not just now, but it is a challenge, it's been a challenge. But I do need to say that we cannot have remote learning right now. DESE has not approved remote learning, so I cannot unilaterally move to a remote learning situation. If I need to close at this point because of high numbers, for example, of staff absence, or if we have substantial in-school spread, I need to call the state and have a conversation with them about what the options are. And at this stage, what my option is to close school and treat it as if it were a snow day. So it's a day that would have to be made up. So I want to make sure folks are aware that's not a decision that I can make by myself just for Greenfield. Okay, volunteering. We have updated our volunteer process. It is on our website. So folks who would like to volunteer, we have a brief training available. It's maybe 10 or 12 slides. Covers some basic information that people who are in the buildings need to know, such as things about mandated reporting, confidentiality, and the sexual harassment laws. It's a brief overview, not the depth that we necessarily go through with our staff. We have included a brief questionnaire that allows us to help match people with the best volunteer opportunities, including if they have a preferred school that they're interested in volunteering at. And then we do still need to have volunteers do their CORI check, their criminal background check. So the link is here. My update will be on the website, and under community, On our website, there is a link for volunteers, so anyone interested can check that out. And then Lauren Rice, my administrative assistant, will be coordinating for our volunteers. So if anyone has questions, they can call the superintendent's office and we'll get things started for them. One thing I will clarify is any volunteer in the schools needs to be in the company of a Greenfield Public Schools staff person. So all the volunteer opportunities would be with employees of the Greenfield schools. So, but we're excited about the prospect. We will process requests for volunteers, but at this point, I'd like to hold off placing volunteers in the buildings until our numbers start coming back down. Okay, so other updates, Glenn, to your point about professional development. So, as Karen mentioned, we have trauma-informed care being, professional development being provided on January 28th to all district staff. There is a book that our presenter is one of the authors for, and we are getting additional copies, and it will be offered to all staff, not just our teaching staff, because we believe that all members of the Greenfield Public Schools have an impact on our students and should understand about trauma, not just for the potential effects on our students, but we are all living with a trauma right now, and that affects how we interact with each other as well. So we want to make that opportunity available to all of the members of the Greenfield schools. We're also going to have ongoing embedded support around how to use the principles behind trauma-informed care. We feel strongly that it can't be a one-time visit from a trainer, and then the staff is expected to take what they hear in one day and implement it to the positive for all of our students. So this trainer will come back. She will work at the staff meeting level. She will work at with individual teachers. So it's a series of supports that will continue throughout the year and next year. So that's really the only way that our staff is going to be comfortable and be able to really utilize all of these strategies, is if they have the opportunity to try things, get questions, and go back to someone and ask for additional support or clarification. So, so that's one piece. Our social workers, our adjustment counselors, and our guidance counselors have begun receiving support from a 30-year veteran licensed independent clinical social worker. And that support, I don't want to call it professional development because, again, it's a professional support structure that's going to continue certainly through this year, and we're having conversations about that support continuing next year. We are also, the goal of that work is to expand our district-wide responses to our students. We are also working to establish and review consistent process and protocol across all of our schools. We need ways that all of our clinical staff knows where their resources are and what our best practice is. So we will continue to update and review those process and protocols. The counseling staff is also going to be receiving additional training regarding mandated reporting with the Children's Advocacy Center of Franklin County. As I'm sure all of you know, that is, being a mandated reporter is for abuse and neglect through the Department of Children and Families. So they're going to get an added training specific to their department. We're also working with the Collaborative for Educational Services, who will be conducting listening sessions with a variety of stakeholders in the schools and the community. And these listening sessions are designed to identify equity issues in our schools that impact all students' access to academic excellence and well-being. More information will be coming out as soon as the details are finalized. And we're also working with that same CES staff to determine ongoing supports for the administrative staff and our instructional staff. So the ongoing support is still being worked out, but they will be conducting the listening sessions. And then at the administrative level, we will get the feedback, the consolidated themes of the feedback from students, teachers, community members. They have a variety of stakeholder groups that they conduct listening sessions with. So we're looking forward to getting that information. Author Tiffany Jewell is scheduled to speak at Greenfield High School on February 18th. Jessica Pollock, our library media specialist, received a grant from the Greenfield Local Cultural Council during the pandemic, so this was not able to happen at that time. A copy of her book, called This Book is Anti-Racist, was provided to every Greenfield High School student and staff. They'll be reading the first couple chapters in preparation for her visit, and then our 8th grade students will go through all of the lessons that are in the book throughout the remainder of the year. So we also have a consultant, Glenn Franklin, who's been working in the high school with our 8th grade students. He is continuing to provide instruction for them based from a student-generated curriculum regarding bias and race. And he works with our students 1 week per month for a majority of the academic year. And he has, as I said, he has done this for a few years, and he's continuing to do so. We are still looking for someone to fill our Director of Behavioral Services position. We have an interview coming up. But at this stage, in the absence of this position, the district is utilizing some consultants to support the work, but we really would like to have a full-time person employed by the Greenfield schools to do that. Okay. Collaboration with the Greenfield Police Department continues with much of the work related to safety and security at this point. So that's something that we don't talk about publicly, as I'm sure you can imagine. It's not good practice to have conversations about security measures in a public setting. I do appreciate all of their support, specifically on December 17th in relation to the TikTok posts that were out there. As you either know from firsthand or can imagine, that created an immense level of stress in our students and staff that day. And we did, like every other district of which I'm aware in the area, had a significant number of absences that day. But our police department was extremely responsive, and we even had one of the officers who participated in a kickball game at the middle school to help relieve some stress for our students that day. So that was greatly appreciated. We had posted and received applications from our staff to work with Chris Pratt, who's one of our associate principals at the middle school, to write a district-wide social-emotional learning curriculum. The curriculum will be based on the 5 dimensions of CASEL. And I wrote them down in my update, which you will see, because I always remember 4 out of the 5 and never the 5th, which is embarrassing. I should be able to remember 5 things. So the CASEL is a framework. It's not a dictated specific lesson-by-lesson program. But it's a framework that we can use to apply our own evidence-based social-emotional strategies. So the competencies are self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. So all of the issues that we have been speaking about, that we have concerns for our students in terms of being respectful of diversity, understanding bias, understanding their own bias, making good decisions for future life. All of those types of lessons can be built in a developmentally appropriate way as we go all the way from kindergarten through grade 12. And doing it as a district-wide curriculum, K-12, with one comprehensive committee will allow us to ensure that we have some cohesiveness across the grades, so all of our grade levels will be focusing on self-awareness at the same time, for an example. But obviously, the information will progress in complexity as they go through the grades. One of the things that's a beautiful match, and Karen and I have been working very hard to ensure that we will be able to demonstrate for all of you and for the community that all of the work that we're doing really is cohesive and it matches together. So we're working on a sort of pictorial representation of that to share. I keep doing this because my foundation for all of the conversations is the mass tiered system of support triangle that speaks to supports. You may have seen it. It's a red and yellow and green triangle, and that represents the supports for academics and social emotional behavior that are needed to support the green base, which is approximately 80% of our student body. The yellow, more intensive support, is about 15% of the student population, and then the red would be students requiring the most intense supports for academic or behavior success. So that is why you would think I'm Italian talking with my hands, but I'm not. I'm not. It's just a habit. I can't talk if I don't do that. So we will be utilizing information from the listening sessions with CES to help us decide which evidence-based resources will best meet the needs of our students, especially those at the upper middle school and high school, where we've heard feedback that the programs that we've been using have not really hit the mark. So we will be getting student input in terms of matching resources. So, and we will look at work that has been done previously in the district, and also looking at the resources we currently have and trying to utilize those if they meet our needs to address these lessons. We've also had administrative training on Title VI, which is civil rights, and we have done an administrative review of our bullying prevention policy and investigation procedures. Trooper Carmichael, who is the Mass State Trooper connected with the Greenfield schools, has provided several days of training for our staff regarding shelter-in-place and lockdown protocols, and he will be coming back to work with each school individually regarding implementation of those protocols specific to each school. So that's the next layer of work. And he has done that training in previous years, and it was on a hiatus with remote learning. So he's coming back. So you heard Karen provided additional information, but I believe that some of what I just shared outlines the things that are in place or starting to be in place that are addressing some of the climate issues that we have seen. I know that we've all spoken about the needs. We know that the Greenfield schools need to do a lot of work in this regard and a lot of others. And I appreciate that there's community support for the work, and that the school committee has been patient and understanding that we are trying to move all this work, but we are still in a pandemic and a crisis year, and the vast majority of our time, unfortunately, is still spent in crisis response. So it's challenging to address all of the needs that our students and staff have right now while still addressing these daily emergencies. So, thank you.
Thank you. I know someone's pretending to clap over there. I think that kind of is appropriate. That's why I feel like, I don't know, was that a dissertation? Was that
I just know that's why educators are tired.
Oh, my God.
It's a lot of work.
How about questions or comments from the school committee? I see the mayor first. Go ahead, Mayor Rita Gardner.
This is mostly a comment. It happened tonight, and it happened a previous meeting, not the December meeting, but it must have been the November meeting. We have people come up during public comment, and they mention that that we're not, they have an impression that this school district and this school committee are not doing anything about the equity and racial issues that come before us from time to time. And in each one of those meetings, some of, if not all of those people have come before us and spoken, and that's fine. It's good to hear from everyone. But then they leave, and they do not stick around for the superintendent's report, in which she then explains and outlines, as you just heard, in good detail about what is being done in our schools to address those issues. It may not be the ideal that the people speaking have in mind, but I have to say, stick around, hear what the superintendent has to say. Don't just come and speak as if, and imply that nothing is being done and the school committee doesn't support it. Find out, stick around, find out what is being done, and then comment appropriately.
Thank you, Mayor Gardner. Other questions or comments? Member Johnson-Musad.
I just want to thank you, Superintendent and Assistant Superintendent, and all the staff and teachers, just listening to your report. It's amazing this period that we're living through, and the amount of work you're doing, the way that you have kind of come into this role and had to just kind of hit the ground running. And I know you're tired, and I know everyone's tired, and just appreciate everyone continuing to trek along. I certainly could ask more questions about nuances about the design of the professional development day, but I'm just appreciating that people are kind of getting through day by day, and that's really great. So thank you.
I would like to respond somewhat to, well, I would like to respond completely to your question before I hope I respond completely. What we look at are, certainly Karen and I look at the information that we hear from principals about academic work, but we also know that this year is not the year to focus first on the academics. Our students are not there, and our staff is in a place where they need to focus on social emotional as well. So we also hear from the community. There are concerns about equity and bias, and we know that, we understand that. So looking at where our students are and our staff is and the trauma that they have lived, and it's certainly, we know that students have come, they went into COVID with trauma. The ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences study, was done, multiple years ago, I think at least 10 years ago at this point, speaking about the impact of trauma and multiple traumas on people, which include, poor grades, medical issues, physical health impairments, even as students get older in adult life. So we recognize that students came into COVID with traumas, food insecurities, divorce, domestic violence, substance abuse in their histories. There's a myriad of things that could have resulted in that. And the more traumas that students or adults have, the more impact. And then you add COVID and remote learning and social isolation on top of that. So the first place that we felt it was critical to begin to help our staff, help our students, is to talk about the effect of trauma. But our presenter is coming from the lens of what can students do, not from a deficit model of what have they lost, which I think is extremely important to focus on the positive even in that way, and to recognize that all of our students have strengths and positive things in their lives, their personalities, and that's how we're going to motivate students to move forward, is by focusing on those positives. So, Glenn, we picked that because from our perspective, that's where we all are. Our counselors are in the midst of crisis response every day. But when I say crisis, I'm not necessarily talking about big crisis. Individuals who are struggling significantly with anything that they're dealing with. And so our counselors need the resources to support our students in a variety of different ways. And so we wanted to provide a clinical support, someone who does what they do and has done what they do for a long time. And to give them consistent expectations across the district. For a variety of years, our clinical staff has worked building by building. So we're encouraging a network of our mental health staff so that they can also share and support each other. So, but they will also participate in the trauma-informed care. We would never leave our mental health staff out of such an important presentation. And some of the things for the PD day we have to do to move through using like our AVMR. We have to have next steps because that's part of our corrective action plans with the state for Federal Street and the middle school being in corrective status. So there are some things that we just got to do. So does that help?
Yes, very much, thank you.
Okay.
Other questions, comments, school committee? Please, Member Martini, and then Member Deneve after that.
Beat you to it, sorry. I wondered in regards to staffing, there has been quite a bit of turnover in our schools. I've certainly experienced that for our own family. It seems we're hardly going to keep any teacher in any class throughout the school year for our personal experience with it. And I am wondering if the district is conducting exit interviews with the staff who are leaving, and if so, when and where and how that information might be compiled and shared with us.
I will be honest, I'm not aware that we're doing exit interviews at this point. So, that's certainly something I'm happy to look into going forward. It has not, been the top priority this year as I've started. There are a lot of districts who have a lot of staff turnover right now. Greenfield is not alone in that, and we're also all struggling with some significant staffing shortages. So, in terms of Greenfield specifically, we've had a number of staff who are out on long-term medical leaves, some of which have absolutely nothing to do with COVID or anything, such as, childbearing. So, and we've also had a number of staff move out of state. So, I can speak to that, is we do know some staff includes information when they submit a resignation or a request for leave. So, at this stage, no, we're not doing them.
You done?
I have another.
Take as long as you want. I couldn't tell.
Sorry, I won't make you sit here all night. In regards to mask wearing and issues with getting cooperation from students in that regard, we've heard about that a number of times from our student representatives here. I have seen it myself on the occasions that I've had to be at GMS. And I'm wondering, other than simple encouragement to follow the rules, what is the response or the approach to a student?
It is stronger than encouragement. Students are directed that they need to be wearing their masks appropriately. We're really hesitant to move to the place of suspending students for not wearing masks. That's a very challenging conversation to have. So it's really continual expectations that are set. Phone calls to families if there are challenges with mask wearing, things along those lines. But we struggle with it every day, more so as the students get older. I'm trying to think when I have visited the elementary schools, if I've even seen students who aren't wearing their masks, and if they're struggling with it, that it's fallen, you just do a little of this and they pop it right back up. So it's really, as students get older, it becomes much more challenging to get them to be compliant. So it's constant expectation setting. And as I said, Mr. Morrison has already identified that that's an area he's going to focus on with our high school students.
I happen to be aware of policies at some other schools, for example, Northampton High School, of providing a student with one reminder to put their mask back up, and if they're not able to follow through, then to send them home for the day. Is that something that is going to be considered, or no, and why not?
As I said, we'll have to, Mr. Morrison's focusing on that, but sending the student home for the day is a suspension. So we're challenged when we have attendance issues to then remove students, for other reasons. So it's a balance between following the rules and not being here for education. So that's something that we are looking at and continuing to look at alternatives for. Again, sending kids home is not something that we want to do, but, at some point it becomes defiance as opposed to forgetfulness, so.
Thank you.
I don't even want to ask because we'll just be here for 1 million years if I ask. I actually wanted to make a comment. I wanted to thank you so very much for the weekly superintendent updates. You know, I'm like the communication lady. I'm always up in arms about it. But I wanted to thank you so much for that. Having the weekly communication is like, it's critical to my state of mind as a parent.
Good.
But the middle school messenger came out today, and it was fabulous. It was like better than it had ever been. And it included photos of the kids learning different things and reading different books, and it had information about every single grade going on in the middle school. And it was exactly what I had always dreamed of since enrolling my child. I really needed that. And I was wondering if the high school had a similar one, and if the middle school messenger will continue through the end of the year, because it did disappear for a while. And I think it is just very sorely needed, and it's wonderful. I think Jessica's doing a great job. So I want to thank you for that and ask you about that. And then ask you a question that might not be great, but having, in the talk about the SROs and everything, having police officers hang out for recess, even on days when there are issues and people are stressed, that's not something that's a regular occurrence, is it? Or something that could be a regular occurrence? I just want to, because as a parent, that makes me feel kind of uncomfortable to know is going on. So I'm just curious if there's,
I'm not aware that they're hanging out at recess on a regular basis.
I'm just asking if that's something that would occur again, if that was just a one-off.
So I am continuing to do what the school committee directed me to do, which was work with the police chief to determine a variety of options that could be for supports between the police department and the schools, and that work is still in process. So when we have some solid options that are available, then I will bring those back to the committee for consideration, and I would not be surprised if one of the potentials is, social interaction. But again, nothing has been decided, and we are continuing to have conversations about what options are available.
Okay, I just wanted to, it just seems kind of odd, so I just wanted to check.
Well, that day, I'm happy to explain the context. That day, we had some students, that was the TikTok.
Right, I remember,
tag,
yes.
And we had a group of students who were very anxious, and the police officer went to work with our 2 administrators on a situation and recognized that we had some students who were stressed, and so participated in a fun activity with them, and actually I was told that it was very well received by the students.
Okay, great, thanks.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead, Member Martini, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought I'd give it a rest for a minute. In regards to the volunteering, I know that there have been a number of parents who have stepped up and offered to volunteer to help with the behavioral difficulties that we've been having by filling in as hall monitors and other volunteers during unstructured times at schools, such as dismissal and recess and periods like that. And I'm wondering, I'm very, very happy to see the training now being offered for volunteers and having that be more codified, because there have been a number of questions just kind of lingering about that since, I think, about November, when that group of parents did step up. So I'm wondering, how will this development impact that effort? Is the school district going to try to engage those parents to bring them in and follow through on their intentions to volunteer in that capacity? Or does that not seem like something that is going to be possible or helpful to the school district, considering that a staff member would need to be present with each volunteer?
So volunteers, any of the folks who were interested in volunteering can definitely reach out, get their query done, and fill out the little questionnaire. It's not very lengthy, just to identify anything specific they're interested in. Recess duty, one of the things that you just mentioned, is absolutely a volunteer opportunity. We would be very happy to have support. We would always have a staff person out at recess duty. That would not be anything we would leave to volunteers completely. Hallway duty is probably not a volunteer opportunity, given that, a volunteer would be alone in the hallways without a staff person. But things, second chance breakfast at the middle school is certainly an area where volunteers are needed. Lunchtime, all of those periods where we have a number of students together at the same time and we can use more eyes, those are all opportunities, absolutely. We even have opportunities at the high school, helping out in the library and helping out at lunch duty.
Great, thank you. I think there are parents out there who've been kind of waiting for those details to be filled in. So I'm sure there's probably a few people watching that are very happy about that. I wanted to ask you also in regards to the training you have coming in regards to trauma-informed care. You had mentioned that the individual who will be coming and providing training will also be providing embedded ongoing support, and you mentioned that she would meet with individual teachers, and I'm just wondering how and when exactly would that happen? What does that support specifically look like for those teachers?
Well, it would be individualized depending on what the questions and needs the teacher has. So generally it would be during a preparation time or something along those lines, or even in the classroom if the teacher would like the consultant to support them in their classroom. So it's really going to be dependent on what the needs are.
And how many hours do you expect?
I don't have that level of detail.
Okay.
It exists, it's not with me.
Okay. And I also wondered if you might consider offering an information session or a similar workshop for parents who might be interested in the approaches and practices that are going to be included in training for our teachers, and also how this information might improve their understanding of how to work with their kids at home.
We hadn't built that into the professional development, but we can certainly share out some of that information with families.
Great. Last one, I promise. In regards to Castle, you had mentioned that there were some programs that had been in use that weren't really meeting the mark, according to some staff feedback, in terms of the resources that you're using to respond to students. So I'm just wondering what specifically are those programs that had that kind of negative feedback from?
I don't have that information with me.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not even sure that that specifically was shared, just that what we're using isn't working and we need to make some changes. So we do use Second Step, which has been very positive. It's an evidence-based program that's used at the elementary up through 5th grade. So I anticipate that will continue to be used as we move forward with writing the lessons. But, just the general feeling that things at the high school specifically were not really doing what we needed.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions or comments for the superintendent? All right, so we're going to move on. It is 8:30. Report from the chair will be very quick. There is a testimony within the materials. I was very grateful the mayor was contacted by Project Bread. They're a Massachusetts-based nonprofit that works on food insecurity in a number of capacities, and they'd organized to provide testimony for a couple of different bills that are in front of the Joint Committee on Education in the state legislature. And I don't think the mayor really wanted to do it, but I was like, are you kidding me? I'll do that. So I did testify last week, and my full testimony is provided in the materials. And thank you, Mayor Rita Gardner and Superintendent DeBarge, because I was pretty excited to do it, and I could tell neither one of you were, so.
Well, it wasn't exactly that. I just knew that you were the better spokesperson for it.
Thank you.
Well, you are the chair of the school committee. I'm just the mayor.
Member Johnson, yeah.
Thank you very much for the testimony. I think the sentiment is really good and important that the school committee had somebody there to speak to those issues. Just a quick note that at that point, you actually were not the chair of the school committee, that we lacked officers between January 1 and tonight. As far as I know, we had a presiding officer, but not a chair, so just want to note that for the record.
Sure, that's absolutely correct. It was postponed from December 4, and so I had already prepared the testimony, and you're absolutely right. If you want me to go back and correct it, I will. I also already knew I had the 4 votes on that day, so.
How did you know you had the 4 votes?
I counted them.
How did you count them?
We'll move on, Glenn. You count votes as a school committee member, and it's not a violation of open meeting law either, if that's what you're implying. I can talk to individual school committee members.
You cannot speak to more than 3 school committee members about a particular topic of deliberation.
I spoke to 3.
Plus
I don't have
yourself.
to
Member
talk to
Johnson
myself.
Musad, I suggest you
So
move
that's
on
a
from this. I
quorum.
know that you spoke to more than 3 people in an effort to become chair.
I know that as well. So we'll leave it at that. I don't think we have any subcommittee reports, because I don't think any of the subcommittees met, with the exception of Jean, who has been attending the student council, school councils. I do that every time. School councils at the middle school and the high school. And that is at the request of both Jean and the 2 councils who were interested in having school committee presence. And Jean, do you want to just give us a sense of how that's going and what you're doing?
As a school committee member, I'm just there to gather information because I can't speak for the school committee, and I am there as just to listen. And communication has been the thing that everybody is worried about, and I'm very happy to hear that the middle school did a great job. The high school is similarly working on something to get a newsletter out that, so everybody is working toward doing what we keep hearing. And the school council meetings are fabulous because they're the students at the high school and many, many, many parents at the middle school. It's an open meeting, so anybody can go, but as school committee members, we really can't interfere with what they're doing. So.
Thank you. Did any other subcommittee meet? Did I miss anything? Go ahead.
Didn't have a meeting, but there was a change in practice recommended at the last policy meeting that I thought I might kind of give the committee a heads up about. Our method of passing changes to policy has been to bring them to the policy committee for essentially a first reading at the policy level. I don't mean to mess words. Okay, we meet at the policy level, we vote it to bring it for the first reading to the school committee. Then we bring it back for any questions or changes or discussion, and then bring it back to the school committee again for a second reading. And what was recommended to us by Liz from Massachusetts Association of School Committees was we bring the kind of draft kind of template policy to the committee first for first reading. We get your feedback on it, we discuss it at the policy, we make changes, and then we bring it back for the second reading. So I think it will streamline our work, especially we will be, starting our work, updating all of our policies, and eventually getting them so they're all updated and on the website in a searchable format.
That's probably the best idea I've heard at this meeting. Good job. I'll take it. Thank you, Liz Lafond. I'm sure Susan Hollins is watching from home thinking, oh, that was my chance. Love you, Susan Hollins, if you're listening. All right. We do have on here the appointment of school committee members to subcommittees. There is something in your packet That is our next agenda item. And what I would actually like to do, so for our members who may not be familiar or who need a reference, the chair does the assignments to committees and the chair assignments as well. And I am not interested in torturing or punishing any school committee member. And we have two that I don't know you, so I don't know what your skills are or what you're going to do. So I would like to, at this point, put this out here. These are your appointments for now, and I don't want to vote on them until the February meeting. And I don't want you to approach Ekstrom and say, hey, you want to switch? Just ask me if you want to change. I don't mind if you talk to someone ahead of time to say, hey, I'm thinking about asking the chair if I can be on a different committee or if I could do this or do that. Glenn and I negotiated a couple of things last year before we actually finalized committees. And specifically because we have new members this year where we did not last year, I think it's helpful to just let it sit for a little bit. And then because I have a couple of things that have changed, I want to go over a few things here. The first one is, I swear to God, I put it on here. The rep for the school councils will be Jean. It should be a rep one here. It's just not on here, and I thought I put it on here. Also, with advice from our counsel, from Russ Dupre, he suggested, and I would like to implement, rather than having a subcommittee for personnel and collective bargaining, we have just one person, a representative and an alternate, because when we are in active negotiating sessions with our unions, we often are posting multiple meetings a week of the school committee subcommittees that aren't actually meetings. They just have multiple school committee members there. And what some school districts have chosen to do is actually appoint a representative, just one. You don't need more than one school committee member to sit with the superintendent, anyone else from the leadership that might be there, and the lawyer to negotiate with the unions. And if we do, we would stop negotiating and we would bring it back to the school committee. So rather than having this whole thing and this flurry of postings for us to do for things that if someone tunes in, all they get to see is us saying, oh yeah, it's a roll call, we're all here, all three of us are here, and then we go into executive session and there's nothing to see. So I have made that change with Jean being the representative, and I would be the alternate. The Racial Justice Advisory Ad Hoc Committee, my loose understanding is that we have a number of things out there, specifically health and safety redistricting related, and they touch everything that need a racial justice and a social justice lens when we're doing the work related to those committees. And thus, I think the real bulk of the work that we'd originally established, the Racial Justice Advisory Committee, the redistricting, the real bulk of it is regarding redistricting and making that equitable for our students, and making sure that we use all of our correct lenses for reviewing the changes that we're making. And my understanding also is that some of those conversations happened when those two subcommittees were meeting in 2021. So hopefully that's not too much of a change. Did I want to add anything else here? Are there questions or comments? Member Johnson-Musad, go ahead.
I think first of all, we may need to vote on some of these tonight or schedule a special meeting for next week to do so, because, for example, the Budget and Finance Subcommittee needs to be constituted in order to have a meeting next week, like we were discussing before. The other thing, I think the personnel and collective bargaining, I'm open to your argument, but I believe that that is considered a standing committee of the school committee, so I do believe we'd need to deliberate together. It's not a standing committee.
I would encourage you to look for a policy that says we have standing committees. I could not find one.
Ah, okay.
If you prove me wrong, we will change it. And that's the thing, like, all of this, yeah, we can vote on it tonight and then vote on it again in February with changes, to your point.
Right.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, I see. So you're saying essentially vote it, but have it on the agenda for next month in order to
And-
make
and in
revisions if needed, in order to get feedback
Yeah.
from new members about their preferred preferences and whatnot?
Well, and in practice, we've done that every year that I've been chair. We've made changes after the fact, too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's really much different than what we've done before. Other questions? Mayor Rita Gardner?
I wasn't aware we had a sick bank subcommittee. What is that?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Glenn's done it before. Didn't you and Katie do it?
Me and
It's
Katie
for the
did it.
unions.
I think it's required in some of the contracts, so we have a sick bank, and when they make requests to use the sick bank, the group needs to gather in order to decide essentially whether to approve or not. We have asked for support from administration prior to Superintendent DeBarge and protocols and a mechanism and how is that being handled, and we never quite got those protocols in place. Frankly, since COVID began, I don't think we've had to actually convene, which is kind of surprising, but people haven't needed the sick bank since COVID started for whatever reason, but it could happen tomorrow. And then we'd get pulled in for a meeting and it would need to get scheduled and we'd need to, approve or deny someone's request to use the sick bank.
Well, I've made a note that we need protocol, so I'm sure I'll be checking in with you regarding past practice on that.
Sure. It was relatively new when I came on board in May of 2018, maybe, I don't know, and I got voted on that right away, and it was brand new then, so, yeah, we didn't have too long before the pandemic started.
And now that the mayor's spoken up, I did neglect to mention one thing that I had talked about with the superintendent and also with the mayor previously. The Mass Association of School Committees has recommended recently that if we have a sitting mayor who's a voting member of the school committee, that we not assign them to subcommittees due to some conflicts of interest or potential consolidation of power, for lack of a better way of explaining it. So, Roxanne, you're off the hook. Okay, your feelings are not hurt. Okay, Jean, did I see your hand? Please, Vice Chair Wall, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that this redistricting ad hoc committee is going to cover a lot of subjects in the future, and that anyone in the community who wants to be part of it needs to let us know. We're not going to start meeting yet because of COVID and because studies are being done that will assist in our discussions. But all of those who feel that their voice is not heard on any of these subjects should let us know through the school committee email address if it's working. Okay, but they should let us know that they want to be part of it because, unless it's an ungainly number, I welcome anybody's comments coming to these meetings.
Sure, thank you. Member Johnson-Musa, go ahead.
I'm not really remembering, maybe Jean, you remember, but did we structure that as an ad hoc subcommittee of the school committee or as a advisory committee?
Ad hoc.
Ad hoc, okay.
Other questions or comments? Please, Member Deneve.
If I'm going to be the sole representative for the Collaborative for Education, Amy, can you send me some information exactly?
Oh, yeah, don't stress over it.
Collaborative and education are two real big words.
The Collaborative for Education,
It's a thing.
Yeah, no, it's a thing, not a.
oh, so you can talk offline in the interest of time with Member Ekstrom, who has previously been.
Okay, that's great, because I know that I read all of this, but that did not come up, so, thank you.
Other questions or comments? So how about I should have done this ahead of time. We usually do the motion ahead of time. I wasn't thinking we'd officially vote on it tonight, but it makes sense based on Member Johnson-Moussad's comments that we do. A motion to approve the subcommittee assignments for 2022 as presented.
Would you do actually as presented plus adding Jean as representative to the school councils?
Yes, thank you. Poor Jean. She knows I love her.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, further discussion. Let's do a vote. All those in favor, just say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that passes unanimously, and with the change, see, here's what happens is I write a note, and you watch the app, and I have no idea what that even says. No, I'm gonna remember it, because Jean's gonna remind me. And it is a shared document, and I'll make sure that you folks know how to see it. It's shared in the shared for the school committee members. Thank you for that. Okay, we have 2 approvals. And actually, before we do that, I do want to draw everyone's attention to item 10 on the agenda, which may be on a separate page or on a second side. Discussion of proposed city charter changes. I would like to entertain a motion to table this for our next meeting.
So moved.
A second? And a second from the mayor. Reason being, it is a large discussion. It is something that I have found to be completely unwieldy, and even in talking to the mayor a little bit about it, it would behoove me to be able to have a little bit more time to discuss what they've given to us. Any questions or further discussion before we just vote on tabling that? You guys don't care. Okay, so all those in favor, aye. Oh, go ahead. Mayor Wiedegarten, go ahead.
Is it your understanding that the A&O committee wants to take this up in February, or
No.
they don't have a time frame
No, they
yet?
don't have a time frame that has been expressed to me, and they are still working through
Other
other
changes.
committees.
Yeah,
And
okay.
Marlo Warner, Director Warner, indicated just unofficially that it appears there's quite the list that still needs to go, but we'll check in with A&O about that before
Yeah, just so
February.
that they unfortunately hold their meetings on the same night as school committee.
Correct.
I wouldn't want them talking about this at a time we're also talking about it.
Correct.
Wouldn't be helpful.
Correct, we're going to tackle that too. Thank you. All those in favor of tabling for February, aye?
Aye.
And any opposed? Any abstained? All right, so we'll do that, thank you. Our donations, we have 2 donations, one of which ASKP eloquently spoke to, the donation to support the purchase of library elementary books. Jim Fotopoulos and his wife Vanita, Greenfield residents, longtime educators in our schools. He taught for 36, 37 years, I think he said in his letter. He didn't say what he taught in the letter, and I don't know. So Jim, you'll have to send me a message. He and I talk sometimes. Please send us all an email, let us know what you taught, Jim.
History and political science, I think.
Oh, okay, I said history or math? Okay, so thank you. Mayor Wiedegartner knows.
But by all means, Jim, if I have it wrong,
He'll tell us.
do as directed.
But he's donated $1,000 to support the purchase of library elementary books, and the handwritten note that he put in with the donation is in your packet, and it's wonderful. I'd like a motion to approve the donation from Jim Fotopoulos for the purchase of elementary library books.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
There we go. Any further discussion? You got your hand on the button. You ready, Member Martini? Nope.
No, you're ready for me, though, I see.
Glenn, you had yours on. Member Johnson, we said.
Thank you. That was my comment.
Do you have a comment? Go ahead. I can't tell yet. Next meeting, I'll have you
Getting
down.
ready to say aye.
Aye. Okay,
I have a comment.
please.
Just wanted to also say thank you to Jim. I was just so delighted when I saw that letter in there and read it. It was vintage Jim.
Excellent. All right, all those in favor? say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Wonderful. Just note that Member Deneve was out of the room for that vote.
As a matter of practice, when the committee approves a donation, it would be my intention, if you approve, for my office to send a letter of appreciation to the donor on behalf of the school committee.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Another donation, and so I believe this one approved the donation of dictionaries for third grade students. This is Elks.
And fourth grade.
And I'm sorry.
Nope, that was.
You told me, and I'm sorry,
That's
and
all
fourth
right.
grade.
In communication, further communication with the representative from the Elks, he clarified that it was also fourth grade this year, so.
Okay, thank you. So it's the Elks, and we happily took those. I will entertain a motion to approve the donation of dictionaries for third and fourth grade students in the Greenfield Public Schools.
So moved.
Got that down? Any? That was
Moved by
Member
Ekstrom.
Ekstrom and second from Member Wall. Any further discussion on this one? Someone want to say thank you? Thank you to the Elks Club. All right, and we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Wait. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Any abstentions? That was unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now we have the last thing, well, not true. Item 11 is where we're at. Approve the Administrative Assistants Association 21-23 full contract. We have previously discussed this in executive session.
Well prior.
It was-
Vice Chair Wall was a representative, as was Member Hollins at the time.
Yes.
And
Right.
Jane was kind enough to review what the final document was. There were, it was being reviewed by representatives from the association, and it came back to my office. But I believe the negotiations occurred prior to me. So,
All right, and we have all seen this except for our two new members. And it was an executive session we actually had at the high school library. We all had a discussion around this, and we just didn't have it in place to actually come back in public session and sign it at that time. But that is the piece we're doing tonight. Nothing has changed since we looked at an executive session. Normally, these things happen much quicker. It did not happen that way. That's the only difference. So I would entertain a motion to approve the contract between the Greenfield School Committee and the Administrative Assistants Association covering July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2023.
So move.
That was Member Wall, and a second?
Second, Ekstrom.
Second from Member Ekstrom. Further discussion?
I have a question.
Mayor Wiedegartner, and then Member Martini, did you also have comment? No. Mayor Wiedegartner, go ahead.
You've already gotten a reputation, Member Martini.
Keeps reaching for that button.
Yeah. I'm assuming, I acknowledge your conversation and the fact that this was done some time ago. They did ratify, right?
It's been
I
ratified.
don't see that it's signed.
That's after,
They
yeah.
do it after.
They
They don't sign, ratify, and then we approve and sign.
My experience is that we have approved and they have already ratified,
Yeah,
but I don't always consistently in my packet have one that has their signature on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
But when we finalize it in the central office, if you want to be there to see the signatures, I will happily invite you.
No, it's just, it may be a slightly different process. We just have done 7, and we're now in the process of finally ratifying those contracts, and not ratifying them, but signing them. And this is maybe a slightly different procedure, so I just wanted to make sure I was.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we have confirmed it is ready to go from our end. Thank you for asking. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That was unanimous. Okay. Now I need a motion to enter into executive session.
The next item is new business.
Oh, I knew I remembered it, I forgot. I'm sorry. New business, item 12. This We'd promised for a few meetings, we'd put it on there. It's on there now. This is an opportunity for school committee members to suggest things we should bring up and discuss or do something about at a later meeting. I would entertain any new business items.
I have one.
Yeah.
I'd like to have an item about the superintendent evaluation and goal setting and strategic planning.
Thank you. Any others?
Hold on. Superintendent evaluation and goal setting related to the superintendent or related to the school committee? I just want to make sure I
I
write
think
it
it's
down
all,
properly.
it's all part of a network.
All in one?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's a package, yeah.
You got it.
Anything else? All right. Well, we're on to item number 13.
Just say I appreciate you adding that to the agenda, and I hope that it can stay because especially as people are kind of getting their footing as new members, that's a great opportunity for us to talk about things we'd like to discuss as a committee.
Sure. Okay, so I need a motion to enter into executive session for exemption reason number 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. In parentheses, that means approval of executive session minutes from November 10, 21 and December 8, 21 meetings. We will not return to open session. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and then I need a motion to adjourn the public session, please. I'll make the motion. Any seconds? Okay, and, okay, all those vote to adjourn? Aye? Aye. There we go, we're adjourned.